Commission, and happy Halloween. We have a very long agenda that in itself is scary enough for me. We're going to work as expeditiously as possible to get through all of that work this evening, so please bear with us. Before we begin our schedule of public hearings tonight, we have one housekeeping item to take care of, namely the minutes from our previous meeting in October on the 11th. Is there a motion for acceptance of the minutes? Second. I thought I should get them both out there. Well, a second, and I'll make one suggestion for the minutes, and that is to reflect the fact that we did observe a 2-minute time limit on all our speakers at the last public hearing, and I thought that might be instructive going forward if we reflect that in the minutes from October the 11th. Given the volume of speakers that we had, I think it was helpful to get through all those speakers. So just a footnote to that effect.
You would like that added to the minutes?
Please, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to know, we're going to continue with that 2-minute allocation per speaker for each of the public hearings.
I like that practice. And let's note it that it's kind of began or officially began at that meeting. I think that's a good baseline going forward and have that reflected in the minutes. And if the mover and the seconder are okay with that, we'll incorporate that. And then all in favor of those minutes as amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Abstention.
2 abstentions.
Abstentions, okay. 3 in favor, no opposed, 2 abstentions. The minutes from October the 11th are approved. Now we move into the public hearing schedule for tonight. For those who are unfamiliar with the process, as each application is announced by members of the staff, we will ask the applicant or their representative to come forward, provide a summary, concise summary of the application. Following any questions from the commission members themselves, we will then invite members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application to come forward to do so. And then we will invite members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application to come forward and do the same. Where comments are offered in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to the podium and address the comments made in opposition. I think that covers all our bases, and we are ready to proceed with the first public hearing of the evening.
Good evening, Commission members. The first public hearing tonight is SP 2211, a special permit application for transitional parking lot on property situated at 204-208 Wayne Street. Regency Towers Associates is the owner, Jim Wilkinson is the applicant, and the property lies within a residential Class B zoning district. This public hearing is a continuation from October 11th. I did receive an email from the applicant's representative today asking to pull the application from tonight's meeting. The public hearing was published in the public notice, so we need to at least reopen the public hearing or continue, and if the applicant or representative, they may have shown up, or you can certainly ask if any of the public may have shown up tonight to speak in favor of or in opposition of the proposal.
Thank you for that update. So first of all, is the applicant here or a representative of the applicant here? It seems as though the answer to that question is no. So then we move to those who might want to speak in favor of the application. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of application SP-22-11?
I will point out for the commission members, at the last public notice or public hearing, it was identified that the parking surface coverage exceeded 40%. The applicant did submit a revised site plan, which you have in your packet, that reduced the parking surface coverage to 40%. The revised site plan has not been formally reviewed by the Landmark Preservation Board at this time, however.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sort of anticipating this will not see a conclusion this evening, but nonetheless, for those members of the public who may wish to, who made it here tonight to speak in favor of the application, now is your opportunity to do so. And if there are no people in that category, we then offer an opportunity to those who wish to speak in opposition to the application to come forward to do so, keeping in mind, of course, the 2-minute limit on comments. Written comments, of course, are accepted and even encouraged, and it's a helpful way to get good information to the commission members in addition to the spoken testimony. We will look at both. So those who wish to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward, provide your name and address and your comments.
Sheldon Williams, 511 Hawley Ave, where I've lived for 48 years. I'm speaking in opposition to this. This is pretty outrageous, by the way. More than 2 minutes of my time has been wasted by this whole affair. And it's continuing to be wasted. My previous comments are still in effect. You've, I guess, looked at the revised plan. It shows nose to back bumper parking. That's how they reduced it from 27 to 24, kept most of the spaces, and made it bumper to bumper parking. I've never been able to submit a plan over the years consisting of that style of parking. In fact, I wouldn't have dreamed of it. I understand there may be an explanation for it, but I think a close reading of parking requirements doesn't really allow it because turning space is required under general regulations regarding parking. There is no turning space. Also, a comment from one of the agencies was that where are the handicap spaces? 0. Why, if the footprint of the parking lot is reduced, do all those trees, mature trees, shapely trees, have to be cut? There is no walk to the public sidewalk, also cited by one of the agencies.
30 seconds, sir.
I want to give you something here. This is a parking count that I spent more than 2 minutes conducting. On Thursday, October 6th at 7:15 p.m., I found 23 open spaces at the James and Lodi and Wayne Street parking areas, on the street at Wayne, and there are 52 available spaces in front of Attilio's. There were 23 vacant spaces that day. Friday, 10/7/22 at 8 p.m., there were 20 vacant spaces available. Saturday at 10/8/22, 8:15 p.m., there were 25 vacant parking spaces. I believe each of those hours is generally regarded as the dinner hour. The need for this parking has not been established. And we give you this, you can review it, and I hope that you can get a copy to the zoning administrator's office, because one of the counselors said it is important that anything I submit must be included in the file in case you do refer this to the Common Council.
Thank you very much, and that your comments will go into the record. Thank you. Other individuals who may wish to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward, provide your name and address, and comments up to 2 minutes worth, please. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone who's here for the zoning committee. My name is Joan Fahrenkopf. I have done extensive restoration in the Holly Green district over 45 years.
Excuse me, could you please provide your address?
209 Green Street. I concur with what the Landmark Preservation Board would also concur with in this situation. This is an infringement on the boundaries of a historic preservation district, which I personally was very involved with in the 1970s. This asset is Syracuse's asset for historic restoration. To go into this boundary and start to eat away at what this historic district is counterproductive to what this city has in mind. I cannot believe that this came up because in the 1980s I was up here. In fact, I had to stand on the bulldozer that tore down the Swarth house, which was a magnificent 1860s house that you could still go in and turn the gas lights on. I want to concur with the what the Landmark Preservation Board would consistently say. In reviewing such an application in any situation, in most any city here, it would be a recommended denial of this application. A Landmark Preservation Board would note that the parking lot is incompatible and at odds with the residential character of the Holly Green Street District, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Preservation. The location of the parking lot damages the already fragile integrity of the historic district's perimeter along Wayne Street and will impact negatively properties along the 200 block of Green Street, which is the north side. In addition, it would further isolate 408 Howard Street, a designated local protected site, as well as contributing resource within the historic district. From the rest of the historic neighbor to the south, and to the neighbors to the south, this was not permitted 40 years ago, and it sure as shoot shouldn't be permitted today. I thought we've come a long way. I stand for the work that I've done in that neighborhood, and I hope Syracuse's community will back me up. And many other neighbors who couldn't be here tonight, and if you'd like written whatever from them, they're happy to send it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration for the future.
Other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. It appears to be all those who wish to speak on this application this evening. However, given the request noted at the outset of this, the announcement for this public hearing and this application, the applicant is not here. We will continue to hold this hearing open, and it will remain on our agenda for our subsequent meeting, which will be the 20th of November. So the hearing remains open. It will be re-advertised as it was before for our next hearing, for our next meeting, rather. Our next public hearing, please.
The next public hearing is SR 07-12M1, a site plan review for an administrative permit to install a perimeter security fence on property situated at 1120 to 1126 West Genesee Street. Petrogura is the owner and the applicant, and the property lies within a business Class A zoning district, as well as the motor vehicle sales business overlay district. This public hearing is a continuation from October 11th, and the applicant has submitted a revised site plan that relocates the proposed fence to be in line with the rear of the forwardmost building on the site. However, the revised site plan does not address any review comments as provided by the city transportation planner.
Good evening.
Good evening. Dan Gura, 1124 West Genesee Street. I actually got
Thank you.
Thank you. afterwards, just so you can see the pictures you'd be able to look at. So pretty much, we revised the plan for the fence. We moved it back. It will be connected to the office building, but not at like the very front, like in the back of the office building. So we moved it back quite a bit. Pretty much here, move the fence back behind or in line with the office. Jeff, I've spoken to Jeff. He said that if it would be moved back that far, pretty much it would be all right. If it was chain link plus the transparency part of the street and the fact that it's so much backwards, you know, from the street, it's technically be unnoticeable at all. And as far as the asphalt, asphalt that was stated as inappropriate behind sidewalk, please refer to picture 1. Front of the property sidewalk was especially made that way for an easy access to the lot to repark cars, and the biggest part is tow trucks, semi-trucks pulling into the lot to pick up cars and pick up cars. So if we leave them like, if we make like the grass or adjustments to that entrance, then it's gonna cause like the trucks won't be able to go in there. So they don't go in there, that means they're gonna be on West Genesee Street unloading cars to put into the lot or taking them out to take them like to other places. It's gonna cause hazard, because especially the way like where the garage is and the street of West Genesee, it's like, it kind of like, it's not like a big hill, but it kind of like rolls over there. So people come out and then, you know, the first thing they see is a huge semi truck unloading cars, you know. So it's gonna cause hazards, and it's dangerous. Somebody's not, like, you know, a driver misses, does not pay attention, he's gonna slam into a huge truck unloading cars. They could get hurt. The driver of the truck that's unloading the cars could also get hurt. And I went on West Genesee Street, drove by Lamakia Honda, that's picture number 2. It's sidewalk, asphalt, right away. B, Heritage Lincoln dealership, sidewalk, asphalt, no grass, nothing. These are all businesses. Used car sales, picture number 4, same thing, sidewalk, asphalt. All-in-one used car dealership, same thing, sidewalk, asphalt, that's picture number 5. And then a Ford dealership, they have cars on both sides of West Genesee Street, same thing, sidewalk, asphalt, no grass, no nothing there. And then Car Star, which is technically right across from us, same thing, sidewalk, asphalt. And that's just a small portion of them, you know. There's more dealerships and none of them have grass, because any dealership, to park cars, remove cars, especially in winter also, you got to move the cars back, plow the snow, get it gone, you know, so the cars could still be up front for sale or whatnot. If there's going to be like grass, it causes problems. It causes problems for the truck, for people like driving into the lot. It makes the entrance a lot smaller. So that's pretty much it.
And those are the key updates and changes from last time, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would like
there-
to just point out for clarification that I did inform the applicant that chain link fencing is a more of an appropriate material for rear yard fencing, such as would be indicated on the site plan with the fencing behind the office building, but that the planning commission would still be reviewing the fencing material.
Are there questions from the commission members for the applicant at this stage? Thank you. Proceed. proceed to inquire if there are individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward, provide your name and address, and your comments of no more than 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. Doesn't seem as though we have any further speakers on this application. I believe we are in a position to close this hearing unless commission members seek further information on the status of the application. But hearing none, we will close the hearing and entertain a motion for action.
Just for point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask staff, the transportation planner's notes on the asphalt and the right-of-way issue. If we condition what we do here tonight, what's the next step for the applicant? If we take any action, we certainly can't go against the regulation for the right-of-way.
I will say that the Planning Commission does not have jurisdiction over the city right-of-way. You can condition, if you're inclined to approve the application, you can condition the approval upon meeting the requirements of city departments and agencies in general, DPW transportation specifically, or any other department specifically. Right-of-way issues can be, will be, are usually reviewed as part of the building permit process. So there are avenues to address issues within the city right-of-way.
Thank you. I think give the deliberation all the way down the middle, so I was trying to.
Appreciate that.
Clarify.
Which picture?
Where's the right-of-way line? Is it the inside edge of the sidewalk?
Yes, I believe so. It's like, it's on the inside, and then the property line goes like pretty much from that pole. On, I think, the first picture, you could see it, there's a pole and a sign, and it's on the inside.
Well, because the transportation planners come out the property across the street. If you look, right, but if you look at this is across the street, so the planting is on the inside. It's not in a traditional planting strip, and if you look here, that's actually pavement, it's not lawn. So where was he talking about having that? Like this? So is the inside edge of the sidewalk, is the right-of-way inside of that? I don't understand his comments. Not yours, the transportation planners.
The
Jeff, do
street
you see-
line, I'm sorry, the street line is approximately 35 and a half feet in front of the office wood frame structure that's on the property survey and the site plan.
So I'm comparing Neil's comments regarding this planted area, and he references the property at 1125 Genesee, which is across the street. And if you look at where the planting is, it's inside of the sidewalk. It's not where a traditional planting strip is. So is that what he's recommending? I'm not clear what he's recommending.
I don't know.
He says in
Short
similar
of-
fashion, I would
And if you
think-
look further west on Genesee, where a traditional planting strip is, it looks like there's brick pavement or some other type of pavement other than concrete sidewalk in front of the, well, it used to be a Volvo dealer, I don't know if it still is. So I'm not sure what he's suggesting.
He is suggesting, with respect to the asphalt, that it is not an approved ground cover, essentially between the curb line and the property line, except for an approved driveway.
So I guess that's why so that right-of-way line goes where, in this image, I see parked cars.
I can't speak for the image, again,
I don't,
except to
I
say
mean,
that
the sketch plan is a rudimentary sketch plan, so it doesn't have things like that on it. So I'm, again, still confused by what Neil's recommendation is.
his recommendation is that asphalt,
No, I understand that, but it's all determinant as to where the right-of-way line is. So if the right-of-way line was the inside of the sidewalk, then he's not talking about anything where they're currently parking cars. He's talking between the curb and the outside edge of the sidewalk, but that's not what's shown across the street. That's why I'm confused.
I cannot speak for across the street.
Okay, because he's using that as his example, and that's why it doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. Perhaps we could ask for him to clarify that for us, so that we can make a better, a more informed decision, rather than try to guess.
Again, you are able to condition, if you are inclined to approve the application, you can condition it that the applicant meet the requirements of city departments and agencies.
Yeah, but I guess I don't know what his recommendation is. That's why
Okay.
I'm having a problem with it.
All right.
Do y'all know what I meant to say?
Yes.
Okay.
My understanding of Neil's recommendation was that the grass strip would be on the inside of the sidewalk, so between the sidewalk and the building. And that's what's shown across the street, because the edge of the sidewalk and the curb are the same.
Right, but so that implies that the right-of-way line goes into the pavement right now.
It's either that or the edge of the sidewalk, yes.
Right, so if it's the edge of
Exactly.
the sidewalk, then where does he want that planting? Because he specifically says in the right-of-way.
Oh, that's true.
So right now, there's just there's a curb and a concrete sidewalk.
Right, and the
not a lot of
survey
space.
doesn't, yeah, and the survey doesn't indicate if
Right,
it's the edge of
so-
the sidewalk or
So
where it is.
if
Okay.
indeed the right-of-way line goes into where there's pavement and cars being parked, then I can understand his recommendation, but if it doesn't go there, then I'm not sure what he's recommending.
Right, okay,
So
it's basically a question of where the right of way ends.
Right.
Yeah, and then we can, maybe work with the surveyor to see,
Yeah, if we can,
What they marked
and
up there.
clarify what the transportation planner is recommending, because
Okay.
again, if it's curb something, then sidewalk, which is what is further west on the street, then that's a consistent treatment. What's happening across the street is different than that.
right? Got it.
I would recommend holding this open till we get those clarifications. But I will defer to the majority of my colleagues.
Given the confusion over the transportation planner's recommendation and how it applies in this case versus across the street at 1125, I concur, and since we just closed the hearing moments ago, I entertain a motion to reopen the hearing so that we can get that clarification. So, second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So, SR-07-12M1 will remain open so that we can seek and receive clarification regarding the intent and the substance of the transportation planner's recommendation for this particular application. Sorry, through no fault of your own, we're having difficulty interpreting that recommendation from the transportation planner. So we will get the clarification that he's requesting for this project in terms of maintaining consistency to the extent we can in that locale. So we'll hold the hearing open yet again and get that information for our next hearing, our next public meeting, which will be in November, on November 20th.
All right, I'm not sure, what do you guys not understand, what he wants, there's a sidewalk, and then there's that road, he wants grass growing on the inside. So the sidewalk, it literally, the sidewalk meets the road fully. He wants grass growing in that like little section that is still the town's, you know? It's, so like where the asphalt is, where like the whole asphalt of the whole lot starts, there's like a little section there. It's on the inside. He wants like grass growing there. And that's what I was stating with all the like trucks coming in. If I put grass there, then that's like what he's saying about the 1125 and like using that as an example. That's a building, I think it's a Peace building, like for kids, like I think it's like a school or something. It's not a dealership though. That's like, it's two different things. That's why I was referring to all the other dealerships on like,
I think I just.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't
but
get
there's also
it.
something that happens down by to the west of you in the very next block, and I'm not sure if that's what he wants.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
little,
like pretty thin.
yeah, and it doesn't look like it's grass, it actually looks like it's pavement, two different kinds of pavement, which is different, so that's why I think we need the clarification to get a better understanding of what he's talking about.
So we're gonna hold this open until I get better
Okay.
understanding from him. Go for it.
All right,
Thank you, man.
all right, yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, you're good. Oh, yeah. Oh, excuse me, your pictures.
Do you want your photos back?
No, you can keep them, I'm gonna be back.
All right.
These will go to the record, thank you.
Our next public hearing, please.
The next public hearing is PR 22-12, project site review for facade alterations and site changes on property at 400 Burnett Avenue. Tom Hornstein and Cash LLC is the owner and the applicant, and the property lies within an industrial Class A zoning district. This public hearing is a continuation from a public hearing that was held on October 11th.
If the applicant is here, please come forward, or a representative of the applicant. No applicant, it appears. Are there individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward. Provide your name and address and up to 2 minutes worth of comments, please.
I won't need 2 minutes. Good evening. I'm Andrea Wandersee, the Executive Director of NIDA. We're at 101 Gertrude Street. This is a support of the application with some caveats. I think we're happy that Mr. Hornstein's working on this property. There have been some concerns around trash and debris, which NIDA has been working with him and some of the neighbors who've had concerns. We've also had another local business owner who's expressed a couple of concerns, and I think most recently this afternoon wants to make sure there's real pavement for sidewalks and not just asphalt in front of his place. But overall, the signage seems fine, and we're hoping to continue to build up that corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? Please come to the podium. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. I think we have no further speakers.
We're waiting for a revised plan. You never received a revised plan?
I did not. Suffice it to say, the revisions discussed by the applicant on October 11th dealt primarily with the curb line within the street right-of-way, within the city right-of-way. But no, I have not received any revised site plan to illustrate a mountable curb or any other revisions.
And the applicant knows that this was expected.
I sent the applicant an email on October 26th.
Okay, and obviously you don't have a response, so. Yeah, let's hold it open.
I think we have no choice. We'll hold this hearing open for the next meeting in the hopes that we'll receive that revised plan that could be considered.
The next public hearing is R-2252, a re-subdivision to combine 3 properties situated at 2300 to 2306 and 2310 Midland Avenue and 311 West Newell Street into one new lot. The Greater Syracuse Property Development Corporation is the owner and the applicant, and the properties lie within a residential Class A1 zoning district.
I'm Terry Luckett with the Syracuse Land Bank at 431 East Fayette Street. This re-subdivision application requests the merger of 3 parcels located in the Brighton neighborhood. The first is 2310 Midland Ave, which the Land Bank has owned since 2016. That property was surrounded by blight, and the American Rescue Plan provided some opportunity to clean up that corner. We demolished 2 buildings, one at 2300 Midland Ave, at the corner there of Midland and Newell. We demolished a vacant retail storefront that had an apartment overhead. It's an RA1 zoning district, so retail wasn't allowed there. We also demolished a house at 311 West Newell Street last September because the house was collapsing into the basement. So those 2 properties were cleaned up. They're now vacant lots. And at 2310 Midland Ave, that house has been in our inventory since 2016, and we haven't been able to sell it because of the blight there, and because it was illegally converted to a 2-family, so that the renovation costs were too high. We've put a new roof, windows, doors, and siding on that house, and the idea is to try to attract an owner-occupant to take the whole parcel. We recently did accept an offer from a buyer who's going to convert the home back to a single family. She has enough funds to renovate the property, and she's going to occupy it as her primary residence. The re-subdivision will create a large lot. It'll be about a little higher than 12,000 square feet, but it's large, but it's not uncharacteristic for corner lots on that street to be larger than average. There's one at 2201 Midland Ave that's 13,000 square feet, and one at 240 West Newell at the corner of Midland and Newell that's 9,100 square feet. So that larger lot size is what attracted this owner-occupant. She wants more green space, she wants to fence it in. Midland Ave is very busy, a lot of vehicle traffic. And this is good for the neighborhood. It offers the opportunity to put these vacant parcels back into productive use.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward, provide your name and address and your comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. Seeing no further speakers, we'll declare the hearing closed and entertain a motion for action on this proposed re-subdivision, R-22-52.
Motion to approve with the understanding that basically it fits the characteristics and the trends of this neighborhood. So motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? R-22-52 is approved for Midland and West Newell Street. Thank you. Our next hearing, please.
Oh, they made a negative declaration as part of the motion.
We should have tag teamed that one better. She could have stayed home.
Can I ask the board to clarify, as part of the motion, was there a seeker determination? Okay,
Yes.
I apologize, I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Thanks for asking.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Andrea?
Thank you.
I'm Andrea Wondersee, Executive Director of NEDA, 101 Gertrude Street. I'm here about the re-subdivision for 1109 and a half North McBride Street with 1109 North McBride Street. This is so fun. This one's so cute. Somehow, there's a 3-foot wide strip of land between 1109 and 1111 North McBride Street that became orphaned. And so the land bank acquired this strip in 2015. It already sits within the existing fence of 1109, and we have no idea how it got divorced here. So this re-subdivision will correct the irregularity on the records, make sure it doesn't get orphaned again, return it to the tax rolls, etc.
Thank you. We don't get a lot of cute subdivision applications
It's amazing,
here, but
isn't it?
It is Halloween, so.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant on this re-subdivision?
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Provide your name and address and comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing no further speakers, we'll declare the hearing closed and entertain a motion for this subdivision. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? R-22-55 is approved. Thank you. We move to yet another re-subdivision.
The next public hearing is R-22-49, a re-subdivision to combine two property situated at 601 Walnut Avenue and 1018 Madison Street into one new lot. This is a companion application to a project site review application, PR 22-18, project site review for demolition and new construction on property situated at 601 Walnut Avenue and 1018 Madison Street, owned by 601 Walnut Avenue LLC and Jiping Zhang. They are the owners, and Jack Mamie is the applicant. The properties lie within a residential Class B zoning district. The commission may hear the proposal presented together, but you would act individually on the re-subdivision and from the project site review.
Okay, understood. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Dave Mosier with Mosier Architects, 1035 7th North Street, Suite 1A, Liverpool, New York. And I'm here with the owner, Jack Mamie, of 601 Walnut LLC. Just to give a quick update, he has purchased the lot that we're going to be subdividing with. So he's now the full, 601 Walnut is the full owner of both properties. So we'll gladly update that for you, provide you update. So can't remember the year, probably about 2 years ago, Walnut, 601 Walnut bought 601, or Avenue LLC bought 601 Walnut. And it was originally intended to do renovations / or alterations for dwelling units. And then he was offered to purchase 1018, which is due east of the property as well. And so therefore decided to want to re-subdivide the two lots, combine them, because one lot wouldn't be be able to be developed by itself, in of itself. So with that, they have done a lot of work up through the Walnut Avenue corridor with the existing buildings that have been there, doing additions and alterations. And this would allow, what we did find out is that a lot of those buildings and houses are in very dire structural disrepair. So it was never, we found out it wasn't very an economical approach to try to alter and everything that was there. So with this development as a new start, we'll say we would want to tear down those two existing buildings that are there and reconstruct new construction with 3 stories with housing 6 dwelling units total. So with that, that would allow us to provide the footprint. We still have acceptable lot coverage. We're still below the 40%. We're allowed to do a retaining wall to the back, to the eastern property line, and allows us to give us a little bit more screening with the refuse area, where we show that there's about 3.5, 4 foot elevation difference. So we have a loose retaining wall, loose stone retaining wall there, and then we'll also be shoring up along the south side for along the driveway along that 603 as well. We'll have a retaining wall that allow us to develop and do new construction under safe OSHA guidelines. And that is the crux of the site for the subdivision. And just to give you a sense of exterior elevation, which is a little bit different from the other ones that we've developed up just next door and a few more buildings up the way, is that besides just the balcony space in Walnut, on Madison and on the south, we have some balconies also that wrap around. So we're introducing 2 wraparound balconies.
Do we have a better drawing than this?
Rather than just forward facing Walnut.
I just can't read it. Okay, thanks.
And Jeff did reach out to me last Thursday, I think it was the 26th, with some comments to address. One is he noticed that based on his software analysis program that they use to determine the average setback, he determined it to be 27 feet. But we had a long discussion about it. All the other properties at 603 and further up, we were always given the guidance from zoning that it was a 26-foot average setback along that block. And as Jeff said, he goes, well, you know, determinations sometimes could be as a mouse click or whatever that makes that determination, but we maintain the 26-foot average setback just in keeping with the other projects that we developed in that same block. So that being said, I know he said to address it or, and I think another question or comment or consideration was to relocate maybe the refuse enclosure to the side. Which, if we did, it would then cut off, because now we have pedestrian sidewalk that will come from the front and get to the back. And I know it was about trying to reduce the amount of refuse on other neighboring properties. But as I said, this is about 3.5 foot elevation change from this property to that property. So all the refuse area is stepping down further than just right next door. And plus also, there's a 2.5 foot elevation change from the property on the south at 601 Walnut Avenue, also owns. So separately, but they're always maintaining the refuse area daily, 2 or 3 times almost a week is a constant, right?
Almost every day.
Almost every day. So a concern of built up refuse would be mitigated by that. So. And the one deviation we are seeking is that the zone ordinances does require 1 parking spot for each dwelling unit. We did send in a justification letter speaking to the existing 601 Walnut. A doesn't have any on-site parking. Neither does 1018 Madison Street, the property to the east, does not have any on-site parking. And as it relates to the topography of it sits up on a hill. 1018, for example, is 10 foot above street level, and 601 is roughly about 16 foot by datum above street level, so it would be totally impractical or have the ability to provide on-site access and on-site parking for the dwelling unit. So that's one of the deviations we are seeking for a waiver for the parking requirement. Right. Yeah, because the total number of dwelling units between the two properties now as it exists are 9. We're providing 6, so we've reduced the number of dwelling units on the site in that same regard, to help alleviate the need for the on-site parking.
Are there questions for the applicant on either application?
I have a couple. It's hard to read the site plan, given it's the
Size.
reduction. Is there a retaining wall on the east boundary?
Yes.
Okay. And given the treatment of the other projects on Walnut in the photos that are submitted, well, at least of the one, it's sort of incomplete. Oh, this one's not. So basically, it's the same treatment where you're going to have a sloped lawn up to the base of the porches and a central stairway.
Correct. Yeah, the 2 ground units will have their own entrance at that base that join, and then the center stair will then access the 2 dwelling units, or the 4 dwelling units on the second, the 2 on the second and 2 on the third floor.
So there's not any pavement right in front of those porches?
Correct, just concrete sidewalk. We're
No,
proposing.
right up against the porches, I mean, it's lawn right up
Right,
against the
yes, it is,
building?
yep.
Okay, it's just difficult to read this drawing. And your refuse containers, they're not dumpsters,
Those are
the
totes.
tenants or building management takes care of it, so there's no vehicle that needs to go down there to get
That is correct.
a dumpster. I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium, provide your name and address and comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. There are no further speakers, it seems. We will close the public hearing.
Can I ask one, the related properties, what's the vacancy rate in them? I'm just curious. The ones that they all look alike.
Oh,
Are they,
Almost-
they're all
almost zero.
100% rented?
Yeah, almost 0 vacancy.
Almost 0? Like, when you say almost 0, like, explain that.
There's a 1 unit at 613 Walnut that's a studio, and we use it as a model unit for showing sometimes. Otherwise, we're full.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, almost 0.
One more thing for staff. Hi, everybody. How have you been? With the other structures that look similar or built the same, were there waivers for parking for those, or did we ask the builder to create another parking relationship somewhere else?
there were waivers.
Yes. Thank you. I heard you.
I will see if I can get that information for you. I don't think I don't have that information.
That's okay, but if the applicant, so you said that there were no waivers, that the
There
waivers
were
were
waivers,
granted?
yes. Yeah, on the previous one.
Relationship with another parking lot?
Right.
Okay.
The only one is different with 603 that has its own on-site parking to the south, so we maintain parking.
So that one did not,
That did
the
not.
number of waivers?
Correct.
It got a couple?
Yeah, I think you got 2.
Yeah,
We got-
okay.
We got 3.
Was it 3?
3 out of 4 we got waivers for.
Thank you, he remembers, and I'm all set, because I remember there was one of them that had a different parking arrangement. One has on-site parking.
Yeah. Thank you.
I might even remember at 10 a.m., but by 7, I'm not there. Let's see.
I'll just add
I'm using the excuse it's Halloween. You might as well use it tonight.
Thank you, Paul.
Any further questions for the applicant? I think we are in a position to close this public hearing and entertain possible motion for action on this re-subdivision. Well, we're going to act separately. Two actions are required for this application. One is the re-subdivision, the second is the project site review. For any motion, the motions should be separate motions, and they will be acted upon independently of one another. I think I would suggest starting with the re-subdivision application first.
I would move to deny the re-subdivision with no prejudice. And do I have to just have to do the whole thing or not?
I don't know if you need, you don't need a negative declaration for that, right? No.
No, not with the denial, but I would ask for reasons for denial.
Considering the parking that they're asking for waiver, and just someone who frequents that area through passing, making the situation that's already not a good one worse by adding the parking situation that this project is like.
I would defer to the law department, but the parking waiver pertains to the project site review.
Okay.
The second one.
Okay. Sorry, so give me a second.
Just as a point of clarification, the Planning Commission is not required or obligated to render a decision tonight.
Okay. I don't think we have no comments, but so I would add for my reasoning just being the capacity within that area as far as residency. And again, just what that would look like in totality, I just can't fully support.
Again, the Planning Commission is considering the re-subdivision R2249 to combine the two properties.
Correct.
So is there an aspect about the re-subdivision, about the proposed lot configuration
Are you denying the size?
that you are proposing it to be denied?
So I would say based on the size of the lot.
I might suggest, since you have to hear the site plan review, you don't have to make a decision on the re-subdivision right this second. You might want to.
They were presented together.
They were presented together, so
Yeah,
there's nothing
presented
else for the
together.
site plan? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
We have a motion on R22-49. Is there a second?
Would I be able to address his concern?
Well, the hearing's closed. That's what we ask applicants to do, is kind of provide an overall rationale for the project in the formal presentation in the public hearing portion. If there is no second, then this would, the motion would die for lack of a second. So I'll just ask once more, is there a second for this particular motion on the re-subdivision, which is R-22-49?
I don't know if it says in the.
Not hearing a second for this motion for denial, is there a substitute motion on R-22-49?
Can I ask a question of clarification? In your application, you say that the existing dwelling units is 6 and 2?
7 and 2.
7 and 2. So there's 9 units there now, and you're going to go to 6?
6, correct.
Did explain that.
So the actual number of units is actually going down, even though it's going to one building. I don't know if that helps you with your concern.
Thank you for that, but I'm all
It's
set.
okay. Yeah, no, I was confused myself, so.
Gotcha.
since we're just in discussion, make a suggestion that maybe we address the subdivision and then hold the site plan for some more information.
Sure.
We won't be able to build it if we can't start construction, because we pre-rented it to 24 students for the fall, and we're on a very tight timeline now to deliver it, 10 months roughly. So any delay would probably kill the project, and we worked very hard over the last couple of months to address all the concerns and make it fully compliant. Less parking, which is not technically infeasible due to the elevation, and the lot behind the 1018 Madison is at a scale with the neighborhood as far as the size of that lot. So re-subdividing it, this lot would be roughly in line with every other lot as far as size. I would have to cancel leases for 24 kids.
That's not our problem.
Given our track record, we didn't foresee any hiccups at this hearing.
Say that again?
Given our track record of doing one of these roughly every year for 7 years now, we didn't foresee a hiccup with the approval, because it's all as of right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, do we need him at the podium, just because I don't know if you're catching all of this?
Certainly at the microphone, that makes sense, so we can all hear more clearly.
Sure. So
I would ask that the planning commission consider reopening the public hearing then, and the individual introducing themselves and providing a property address.
hi, my name is, thank you for reopening it.
Oh, hold on a minute now. Let us get that detail taken care of.
Excuse me, sorry.
I'll move that
But
we
I'll defer to
reopen.
law.
I will move that we reopen the two public hearings. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The two hearings are reopened. Sir, if you would reintroduce yourself and provide your address, and then continue with the comments you wanted to make.
Thank you. My name is Jack Mamie. My address is 200 East 72nd Street, New York, 10021. I guess I should have spoken before. I apologize, and thank you for reopening it. To address the concern with the size of the lots, the 1018 Madison lot is at a scale of the neighborhood. I believe it's 40 by 60. It's a very small lot, so combining it with 601 Walnut would make for a very regular sized rectangular lot, in line with the scale of the entire neighborhood. To speak to density, we'd be going from a combined 9 units to 6 units, where there's no existing parking or ability to put parking in the future. Redeveloping it, as we propose, is the only economical way out for these properties. So there's really no other way it could be done. And another concern, I guess, was there another specific concern? I also just wanted to say, I was saying before, we pre-rented the building to 24 students for next fall. We have a track record of delivering 7 years in a row on time, and a delay in this hearing would make it not possible to start construction, and we'd have to push this off probably another 10 months or 12 months. And financing's all lined up, everything's ready to go, and the way scheduling is with the school year, we kind of have to do everything at once. And being that we haven't had any problems in the past and everything is as of right, besides for the parking, which is technically infeasible, we need the approval in order to not punt this down and be in a rough situation.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll add also, we have a project that we're in contract for, also on the street. We'll be proposing it hopefully in July, and we plan to put about 15 or 17 parking spots there. So that might alleviate any concerns with parking in the overall area. But as it is today, most of our kids don't have cars, and there's really not a demand for parking. In the one lot next door that we have 5 parking spots, only 4 are rented right now.
Commission members, while these public hearings are open, further questions for the applicant?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm inclined to suggest we close the hearings, plural. There's no further need for information, applicant. So we will do that now. And we return to the 2 applications at hand, the re-subdivision and the project site review. We can take them in any order.
I don't know if it helps the commission, but as I look at the property, it is an existing facility that, because of its age, is got no parking and no waiver. So what is being requested is a continuation in terms of use, same type of use, reduce the number of units, and it's within your discretion, but without a waiver, nothing can happen to this property because there is no parking available. So it is an unusual situation where you have property that, because of its age, did not require a waiver at the time, has been in continuous use as residential, commercial residential, but nonetheless residential. So it's a difficult situation to develop that property when there's no ability to get a waiver.
Thank you. For the purposes then of going forward on the re-subdivision, make this motion, move approval of the negative declaration, recognizing that for all intents and purposes of practical considerations, there's an existing condition, that there has not been parking. So I would grant the parking waiver.
Second.
Well, that's
the next one.
That's on project site review.
So, move approval of the negative declaration of re-subdivision.
The re-subdivision, okay. Discussion on the motion before us, which now pertains only to the re-subdivision. And for clarification purposes, R-22-49, and the motion is to approve. If there is no further discussion.
I would like to note, the applicant made this point, and it's evident in one of the drawings in front of us, that because the corner lot is smaller than all the other lots on Walnut, by picking up the lot on Madison, that Walnut lot actually ends up being very similar to all the rest on Walnut. So since we've been doing subdivisions in the recent years by making those notes, I just want to make that note for the record. It's not completely inconsistent with the rest of the block, Walnut block.
Thank you, and that's noted for the record. Thank you. Further discussion? If there is no further discussion, then all in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The re-subdivision motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Now before us is a different but related action, the project site review for the same site. This is PR-22-18. Is there a motion on this application?
I will make this motion again now that it is the project site review. Seeing how there is an existing condition and a continuation of the same use, I move approval with a negative declaration, also noting that there is now even a reduction in the units, dwelling units that'll be in the new complex.
Use with those 6 spaces. Okay, thank you for specifying. Second, thank you. Discussion on this motion. If there is no discussion, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Those abstain, please indicate so. Those abstaining, please indicate. The project site review has been approved for PR-22-18.
Before the applicant leaves, you mentioned another project, and with all due respect to the fact that you have leased this property before you got your approvals, I'd ask you to meet with our staff in the event you need any approvals for the next project. I mean, this worked out, but it might not the next time, so I would hate for you to be in another difficult situation.
I sincerely apologize. The
Okay.
finding was my fault.
It happens a lot. I'm just saying, since you're here, we can hopefully get you to talk to them soon, and if you need to come before us, you won't be in a time crunch.
No, it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening.
The next two public hearings are companion cases, starting with R-2250, a re-subdivision to combine 6 properties situated at 1001 to 1019 and 1027 to 1029 East Genesee Street, 301 to 307, 309, and 313 to 323 South Crouse Avenue, and 1014 to 1016 East Fayette Street. Timberwolf Capital Properties LLC is the owner and the applicant, and the properties lie within a business Class A zoning district. The companion application is a project site review to facilitate new construction of a 6-story apartment building with 305 dwelling units. Again, 1001, 1019, and 1027 to 1029 East Genesee Street, 301 to 307, 309, and 313 to 323 South Crouse Avenue, and 1014 to 1016 East Fayette Street. Timberwolf Capital Properties LLC is the owner and the applicant. And again, these properties lie within a business Class A zoning district.
Thank you. And as we just did, we will do the same with this set. Well, that's not the right way to say it. Our approach will be the same with these 2 applications. We'll hear them as one unified project because it makes sense to hear that all together. And then when it comes time for the commission to act, it will act separately on the 2 required actions for this project. So with that, please begin.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting, project engineer. Also with me is Mike O'Shea, partner with QPK Design, the project architect, and we're representing tonight Timberwolf Properties for the proposed apartment project at South Crouse and Genesee Street. So been working on this large part of going on 6 months now, starting with the pre-development meeting that we had with the city staff and got their comments, and then moving forward with the more detailed designs necessary for the project site review application. But the purpose of this project is to continue to transform essentially an underutilized parcel into a valuable asset that's directly adjacent to the East Genesee Street connective corridor. And to provide a more variation in the type of existing housing options that are available within the corridor, which will in turn then support the East Genesee Street businesses along the corridor, commercial businesses, and connect to this project to downtown. So take you through the existing site, and I'll talk about these applications concurrently because they are related. Spin this right around, I guess. The existing site, what you can see here, north is to the right of the page. So South Crouse Ave is to the top. East Genesee Street with a connective corridor is off the left-hand side, and then Fayette Street is to the right, to the north here. This is directly across the road from Syracuse, which is a recently developed apartment project. And the site is essentially bounded by Fayette, Crouse, and East Genesee. The main intersection is East Genesee and South Crouse, which abuts the connective corridor. The existing zoning of the property is business Class A zoning, under which multifamily dwellings and apartment houses are an allowable use. And the site currently consists of 6 existing parcels that are occupied by a small medical office on the corner. There's various surface parking lots in the center of the block. There's a little bit more office space within South Crouse Commons, and there's a small barber shop with some vacant land and a parking lot on the corner of Fayette and South Crouse. Over along Genesee Street, this does include two houses, if you will, which we've seen before in a previous project that was a much smaller and condensed project adjacent to Copper Beach Commons. These two houses are 1029 and 1027 East Genesee Street. The Leftern house up here is the former Ronald McDonald house, and they've since moved around the corner with a new building. And then the one to the east is a Ward Wellington Ward house. So they're both currently unoccupied, but they were former boarding house type apartment type uses. And neither house is listed on the register, although the Ward Wellington Ward house is eligible and obviously has some historical architectural context related to the architecture designed by Ward Wellington Ward throughout the city. So the Ward Wellington Ward house will be preserved and brought back to life and essentially renovated as an amenity to the new apartment project. And we have already met with, both in work session and 2 formal meetings with the Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board to go through the demolition of what was the added on portion. There's a small connecting bridge, and essentially bring that exterior facade back to the way that it was originally designed. This includes a renovation to the front porch, which they've provided us historical drawings of so that we can more closely match what the original architecture of that house was. We've also, and I'll talk about the new project in just a second, but we also have changed the new project to respect the setback of that house. A lot of the other houses, when you go off to the west, or buildings, when you go off to the west on Genesee Street, are 0 lot line. And we had originally shown complying with the minimum setback of the district, and throughout the course of the meetings have pulled the building back with a greater setback so that it's in line with the Ward Wellington Ward house, which is typical as you get further to the east and you get into the mansion corridor where there's a lot larger setbacks. So we've made that change. Other than that, the existing buildings will be demolished along with the site infrastructure, and the purpose of the re-subdivision is to combine the 6 existing parcels into 1 new contiguous lot for the project. So the proposed project is a market rate apartment project, primarily along the South Crouse frontage, with the building situated more toward the corner of Genesee and South Crouse. Just as I mentioned, directly across the street is the 6-story Theory project, and then just off to the east is the Copper Beach Commons apartments. Our project is 315 units on 6 floors, and there's an underground parking garage with 130 spaces with access off East Fayette Street in the rear. The main residential lobby and building entrance will be on the corner of South Crouse and Genesee, with a canopy and entry point to the lobby just off of South Crouse Ave. As you get into the first floor, what you can see in yellow are the majority of the amenities, including a media room. We have a fitness center, yoga, there's various conference spaces, a lounge, and then as you go out to the front along Genesee, there's a small patio area. Coming through, there's also some management offices and coffee vending type area for the residents here. And as you come through the lounge, it opens up into an outdoor open courtyard space that's situated between the 2 residential wings. As I mentioned, the Ward Wellington Ward house will be preserved. It'll be renovated on its interior to be an amenity space that provides a variety of different uses. There's a kitchen, there's also bathroom facilities that are associated with the outdoor amenity space, which includes a pool, patio, pergolas, and other outdoor type amenities there. In terms of the rest of the site layout, the underground parking access was chosen off of East Fayette Street. Essentially, we've eliminated all the curb cuts along South Crouse Ave to limit vehicular access. And the idea here is that moving into the I-81 project, South Crouse is going to become more of a corridor between Erie Boulevard and 690. So having our vehicular access off of Fayette is appropriate in that it accesses through the back of the site here. Directly adjacent to that, there'll be a maintenance and service drive so that we can maintain things like trash and maintenance vehicles out in the back of the site. And then we have pedestrian access all the way around. So there's access from Fayette to the middle of the project, and then around South Crouse and Genesee as well. The sidewalks all throughout the frontage, based on the scale and scope of construction, will be completely reconstructed with new sidewalks and streetscape. And this was one of the comments that Owen Kearney had asked of us throughout the pre-development, and then his staff comments, was to ensure that there's a revitalization of sort of the streetscape in terms of a consistent grass strip with street tree plantings, and then 10 feet of, within the setback, 10 feet of landscape planting to both screen the residential units and also break up the facade there. We're also going to maintain a pickup and drop-off area. One thing that's common, obviously, is many Amazon trucks coming in and out. There's also ride shares, there's also food deliveries, so still having a place that's off the traveled way for deliveries and pickups and things like that is something that we're trying to build into the project.
Is that, you're showing that on Kraus?
Correct. Yep. On Genesee Street, there's an existing bus stop, and it's also very close to the staging of the intersection, so we wanted to avoid that in terms of the connective corridor. So the pickup and drop-off area is right at the front entrance off of South Kraus. Architecturally, you know, obviously with our applications, we've submitted the full palette of floor plans, which is the first floor. The remaining upper floors are consistent with residential units, and there's a few common spaces in between on each floor. We've also submitted not only the building elevations, but a variety of perspectives and renderings of the project from the Genesee Street intersection, showing essentially a palette of materials that include metal panels in different colors and textures, and also on the ground floor having a masonry block unit, and then glass storefront to encompass our amenity areas that face out to Genesee Street. Aside from the Planning Commission applications, we also did apply for relief from certain aspects of the zoning ordinance to the Board of Zoning Appeals, so that'll be a concurrent application as well that we'll visit next. The variances that we're requesting, the setback is one of them. We meet all of the setbacks for the district with exception of the front entryway, where the canopy and stairs, which are part of the structure, protrude out past that 10 feet. The remainder of the setbacks are compliant with the 10 feet along Kraus, and then the enhanced setback that we've actually pulled away from the minimum required in order to get in the same building plane as the Ward Wellington Ward House. Building coverage is the other, one of the other variances that we're asking for. In the way that the code is written, the district allows for 40% building coverage and then 40% parking lot coverage. So essentially 80% total lot coverage. In our case, the parking is contained within the building, so we don't have a surface parking lot, but our total lot coverage is 52%. So we need a waiver or a variance because we exceed the 40% building coverage, but we are much less than the 80% total lot coverage because our parking is contained within the building and it's not actually out in a surface parking lot. Density and parking, which are related, very similar to some of the other apartment projects that have been granted similar variances. This project in particular is obviously located on the connective corridor, which is essentially a significant investment in terms of the infrastructure to connect the university and downtown, but also a significant investment at this area between the university and downtown in order to spur development and create density, so that we have housing units where people can work in the retail stores and the restaurants along Genesee Street and really connect the in-between between downtown and the university. So parking and density are definitely related. And when we look at the existing zoning code of what's allowed, there's two things. There's the adopted land use plan, the 2040 land use plan, which does identify this area and its golden recommendations in terms of the economic development. And this is from the comp plan for economic development to facilitate higher residential density along neighborhood corridors and to support and encourage high density residential projects on properties adjacent to the commercial corridors to promote more foot traffic, interaction, vitality, as recommended by the land use plan. And this may call for zoning changes, as well as selectively incentivizing residential projects when market conditions do not. So certainly calling for higher residential density there. And what's interesting too is that although we're applying under what is the current adopted ordinance for business class A, Rezone Syracuse has been going on for a very long time. 2019, I think, was the last draft. It collected a lot of dust throughout COVID, but excitingly, I'm sure this board's involved, but the public hearings have started, the draft, or the GEIS is now progressing. So there will be a point, potentially, whether it's the end of this year or the beginning of next year, that Rezone Syracuse hopefully is adopted for the betterment of the city, and will be adopted prior to probably even starting construction on this project. So although it's not adopted, reflecting on it, I think, plays an important value. This is actually the MX4 district, and the MX4 district is to provide for pedestrian-friendly, transit-supportive areas of higher residential development. So again, a focus on residential development. But also in terms of the density, what's interesting is that from the beginning of this process between Mike O'Shea's office and ours, and meeting with the developer very early, he was very clear that he wanted this to be a market rate style project, and needed to find ways to essentially separate this project from more other projects in the area that are more purpose built for student housing. Essentially, those are designed and built just for students, when you look at Theory or the Marshall or U Point, that are all kind of in the area. And obviously students will still have the ability to rent here, but this project was designed to purposefully attract a wider range of tenants and more focused on young professionals and medical students, potentially technology graduates that are coming from outside of town, from Harvard or MIT, to live up hopefully in the city, but work up in the White Pines Business Park. But that this should be more of a sustainable housing product, even if the student market becomes essentially saturated, right? And there's an even greater demand for this type of market rate specific housing when that becomes an issue. So this makes our request a little bit different in terms of the density, because of our the way that the project's been designed in terms of the dwelling units, right? The dwelling units and the parking count. Our project is 315 dwelling units, and 265 of those are one bedrooms and studios. So 84% of the unit mix here is 2 different styles of studios, 3 different styles of 1 bedroom apartments. The remainder, there's 39 2 beds, and there's only 12 3 beds. So on 315 units, we have 378 beds. When you look across the street, for example, Theory Syracuse. Theory Syracuse is almost twice the footprint and actually has less dwelling units than us. They only have 245 dwelling units, but they have 600 beds. So they have almost twice the beds, less dwelling units. And the reason is because that project was specifically built with a very high number of 4 and 5 bedroom units. Almost specifically catering to sort of the student living style, and not so much once you've graduated, still wanting to live and work downtown, but perhaps only needing 1 bedroom. So same thing with Wellington Place Apartments. We went through that project as well. They only have 193 units, but they have 480 beds. So again, significantly less units, but they also have more beds. There's other things within the project. The amenity spaces are much larger. We've provided for like a media room where there can be podcasting and things like that. So almost like the work from home type of atmosphere where you can have conference space and things like that. So the project's been designed essentially with the future in mind, in order to try and fill a gap for a greater variety of market housing within the area. So with that, again, we've met with the Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board. We have the preservation of the Ward Wellington Ward House and their recommendation for approval regarding those improvements. We've met with city staff on several occasions. We've also met with the fire chief for fire access. We've met with the DPW and engineering because there's needs for infrastructure repairs throughout the corridor, part of which is our responsibility as a developer for a developer-sponsored sewer improvement project related to the sewer use. And we've also had the staff comments, most of which are either have been addressed or could be addressed during the building permit process. So with that, obviously this is a public hearing, so turn it back to the chairperson. Questions and comments for the board, or opportunity for the public to talk as well.
Let's start with the commission members first. Any questions for the applicant?
I'll put it in context before the specific site plan begins. In 2019, we were approached in this room, different developer, a little further down Genesee Street, but the same similar issue in this corridor of a large-scale, multi-story, I want to say 5 or 6 story.
Wait, a couple blocks.
But I'm saying,
Right.
further down the corridor. But potentially, the issues that were there, and that did not go forward, we may try and have this conversation tonight to see if this is a different outcome. The issue of the units, the scale of the building compared to the rest of the neighborhood. As you said, this is closer to what we would consider the corridor where there is more student housing, more housing in general, and larger buildings as you come further downtown. But the density is an issue, and you're saying the preservation of the Fort Wellington, North Lane House is important. Not to get into the use of the word amenity, but I understand it's important, and however you preserve it is important to us. So now I'll yield for my friend to talk about the site plan.
Oh, well, I would agree with you. The project you're referring to, which was at least, I think, 2 blocks to the west, was of this scale, but proposed where there's basically intact neighborhood that's much less dense. So points for not being too far west, or too far east, rather, I'm sorry, wrong direction. I do have a number of questions, though. How big are your studios? How many square feet?
Studios, I don't know if their numbers are actually on there, but I looked earlier between the studios and the ones, they're between 400 and 690, I think, square feet.
Between 4 and 6?
Yeah,
So the
404 to 447 for the studio.
So the studios are a lot more like dorm rooms than a lot of market rate
Sure, they're
studios.
smaller, yep.
And the ones, how big are the ones?
The 3 different size ones, they go from 552, 567, and 583.
So I guess, with all due respect, that's still more of a student rental market than it is a young professional who's out of undergraduate school, just given the size of those. And we're not even talking your rents. That aside, one of the things that was of interest to us with theory, but quite frankly, with every one of these housing projects we've looked at in this neighborhood, is what the first floor is like. Along Krause, you're proposing all residential units. There's no public space, there's no retail, there's going to be no opportunity for in and out with pedestrian. Correct?
Correct, except for the portion that is the front entrance with the
Right
yellow
at-
that
right
you
at the
see.
corner.
Right,
Okay.
and with theory, the majority of it is actually parking garage.
Right.
But at the corner, there are 2 retail spaces, and I believe, I mean, even driving by it, I believe most of them are vacant. So retail was something that I think there's more opportunity for commercial. There's a lot of existing commercial on Genesee Street within a block of here that should fill up its vacancies, and this owner thought about it, but didn't proceed with having this have any, I guess, small retail space on the corner.
And I appreciate that those spaces in theory are empty, but one of the arguments that comes with rezone that you invoked, we can't deal with, but since you brought it up, I'm gonna go through that door, is MX4 is about mixed-use development, and this is not a mixed-use development, so it really wouldn't be consistent with the intent of MX4, and that's unfortunate. Because I think that we're missing an opportunity to enliven the streetscape, even if it's only a little bit more of South Krause by not having that retail space. I've made this comment about the project that's being constructed a block away, that's under construction. It effectively was a dormitory, and in some ways this is the sense that I get out of this, without having that mixed use on the first floor. The other thing is that in considering the I-81 project, this becomes a primary vehicular corridor from the new exit from 690. It's going to be rather busy. It would again seem that this would be a great opportunity to enhance pedestrian interactions on this block, as opposed to putting residential units along that block. So I have some concerns about the effectiveness of that kind of how one might market that. And then along those same lines, in thinking about what this might become at the conclusion of that transportation project, things like your drop-off, is that something you've discussed with State DOT? You know that that's something they're gonna be good with, is putting a drop-off on that major entry-exit route?
So State DOT, no. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of there's even garage entrances to Theory that are right across
Right.
the street. So trying to limit it within the capacity of still using the property, trying to keep those driveways off was the direction that we were headed. And we did bring this up with Neil in terms of the city's aspect. We haven't talked to the state about it. But we did have a smaller area shown, and it was actually closer to the intersection on Kraus. And in discussion with Neil, we moved it further away, even though it is a little bit further away from the main entrance, and we made it a little bit bigger to accommodate multiple vehicles so that there would still be an opportunity to come on and off of that pickup, and not have somebody queuing and waiting like the Theory bus currently does.
In some of the discussions I've been part of and some of the drawings I've seen, that might not end up panning out if this project were to go forward. So it's just something to think about, that
Sure.
what you're doing off of Fayette might end up, again, if this were to move forward, might end up having to accommodate off-site, maybe from Fayette in
Yeah,
terms of deliveries.
okay.
I know the Preservation Board had asked, and you've complied with pulling the building line back to being even with the facade. Was there any thought, was there any discussion of actually pulling it back even further so that if the historic building ends up not being lost in the streetscape?
So
Because even your drawings pretty much show it overwhelmed.
there was a few things that we did that I think we took their direction, which was bring it in line with the building. Essentially what you're doing is, there's an existing office building, and when you're on the hard corner, that office building kind of obstructs it, but also does the Ronald McDonald House, and there's kind of overgrown landscaping, all of which we can pretend should be deleted. When we did the perspective views and we pulled the building back to where they had wanted to at our last presentation, from the intersection, the building is visible, whereas it's lost a lot of that context today. So we essentially took their recommendation and moved it back. I think we moved it back some 18 feet or something like that to get to the point where it's in line with the building, but the perspective view still opens up that view. The other things that we did do is this actual corner of the building. We removed a unit from the upper floor so that there's a step in the building. That was something they specifically requested, and we talked about it a little bit, and they were adamant that that building and the step should be maintained. This way, it's essentially 5 floors directly adjacent to it, and there's almost a terrace that forms when you get down, which is almost matching the ridge line of that ward house. They also talked about the coloring, because there's a lot of things that could be done with architecture to blend the colors of what our building is, which is a prominent darker color, and change that corner to be a lighter color such that it matches more closely with the lighter color of the ward house. So we essentially were taking their direction and were able to implement each one of those, but we didn't get into a discussion about pulling it back even more, I guess, to answer your
Oh,
question.
I would agree with them that the lower height definitely is helpful. Keeping it at a minimum in line is helpful. I was just curious as to
Yeah.
whether or not there was ever discussion of pulling
Sure.
it back a little further. In terms of color, I'm sure this is not going to be a complete restoration, just given what's happened on the interior of the building over the years, but I understand from the staff report or the preservation work comments that, and yours, that in reconstructing the porch, you're going to be referencing Ward's original drawings.
Correct.
If there's any indication of what the original color palette is, I would strongly suggest that's what you would use
Sure.
for this, again, if the project were to go forward. Thank you, I'm done.
If you'd like to, yeah.
Can you just explain your previous comment about the use in regards to, like, you explained it's market rate, but you didn't really explain, like, who would this be, like, marketed to?
Sure, so
And so my concise question is, like, please explain to me the use of, like, the tenants and who will be living in this place, who you're marketing to.
young professionals, medical resident students, graduates, and then hopefully high-paying technology jobs that come from new graduates that are needed to fill a much-needed housing demand across the county, essentially. And going backwards, what this owner and what this owner's direction was, and what I was trying to convey, is that a lot of these projects are designed specifically on their interior. The unit layouts are designed specifically for student living, where there's 5 bedrooms in 1 unit. Somebody who's newly graduated may no longer have 4 other roommates that they would like to room with. So the room layouts, in keeping with something that can transition over time and still be an occupiable apartment building, even if the student housing market isn't performing as well, or if it becomes saturated, was the intent to create a building that could be catered to multiple different varieties of different housing needs. If we could too, Chris, I think Mike has a little bit more explanation of the streetscape in terms of like the residential units and things like that. Do you want to add something?
Maybe just a couple added comments. Mike O'Shea, QPK Design. Your discussion about public spaces along South Krause, just to give you our perspective on this, that we always looked at East Genesee Street as Main Street, if you will, and all the properties really front Main Street, and looked at South Krause as not a public side. So we never felt that we would compete with Genesee Street, so we moved all of our public spaces up to that to respect the Genesee corridor. So there's a little background on that. And to you, sir, we're looking at this, and maybe you're familiar with some of the apartment complexes in Inner Harbor, maybe Iron Pier, for example. We're looking at this as more of an urban version of that. So that's not, we're not looking at this as a student housing market. You're looking for examples of who we were actually going for.
Okay, I'm just curious because he referenced students, he said referenced grads.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say basically like after the individual would have to work for a large tech company or be from like, or a grad student to like be, I guess, considered. I was just trying to have him explain that based on what he said.
There would be no pre-qualification. It's open housing. Anybody can rent an apartment here. It's just, you know, the type of individuals that would be looking to rent an apartment. This wouldn't be specific to somebody who is currently in school. So it could be a variety of people, anybody that wants to live, work, and play in the city. So there's no pre-qualification to anybody. It's open housing. So I didn't want to misconstrue that we're catering to certain businesses or certain universities. It's market rate apartments available for rent to anybody.
And it's 100% market rate. There are no, it's not a mixed income.
Correct. There's no like AMI qualifications. Okay. There's no, yeah.
And it's expressly not, there aren't any units that really would be marketed towards families.
There are 12 3-bedrooms. I think, so a family could rent here.
Sure.
I think what I'm trying to do is contextually say, you know, yes, you could rent here as a family. If you, for instance, owned a business on Genesee Street, maybe you're in your late 20s and you have a young child and maybe you need a 3-bedroom. We have that available. But I think taking, you know, somebody who's in high school and like a 4-person family, you know, just the area itself is maybe a little bit different than that. So, you know, you wouldn't be excluded if you had kids, but I think the area itself speaks for itself.
It's tough just because of how you've switched what you've said a couple of times. And I'm just trying to really understand like who is this targeted to. And legally, I'm a licensed realtor. You're basically like saying what the type of person is going to be able to rent there, and that's not legal. Based on how you just explained what you said. That's why I asked you multiple times.
So again, anybody can rent here. It's market rate apartments.
You didn't open with that. You opened and said that it would be students, grad students, someone from like a big tech company,
Right,
and
it could,
so forth.
okay, I understand, and I apologize for.
No, don't apologize. That's what you said. So you stand on your statement.
No, I'm going to retract my statement and say I was trying to give examples of the types of people who would potentially be renting here, people who maybe are just out of school.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
All set, thank you.
Just a couple, did I understand when you were referencing the Ward House earlier that it'll be restored, retained and restored? Did I understand that there have been maybe an expansion of that over time and you're going to return to the original footprint? Is that accurate?
Correct. And maybe Mike knows more than me, sure, architecture-wise.
There was a series of renovations to that building, both on the interior and the exterior, mainly to the south. There was a small addition put on. It looks like a shed roof with a porch. Our intent isn't to deconstruct that. We're going to leave that as it is. We're adding one small addition to make the facility ADA accessible, adding a lift on the interior of that. Other than that, we are going to preserve some of the significant elements as we presented to the landmark board on the interior. There are just a few. And then bring back the exterior as you started to describe. We agreed to renovating the porch and bringing that back to its original condition. It was modified to a bedroom. So we're going to make that a open porch again. And then bring back the exterior as best we can from the existing drawings, as close as possible, but essentially protect the exterior for years to come to preserve that artifact, if you will.
Thank you. And then one other question. Did you see the action from the county planning board and its comments?
Specifically?
Is there a specific comment in them that you're referencing?
Yeah, let me try to find it.
I do have the
again.
resolutions. I don't have them printed in front
It
of
was
me.
a long resolution, but I think it was toward the end. There were 3 comments. One had to do with the historic resources. I think you've kind of addressed that. The second one, I think, had to do with commercial uses on the first floor. I think you touched on that earlier, but if you could amplify on that, that would be helpful. And there was a third point they made, and don't tell them, but I can't remember.
Bicycle racks and high-quality transportation accommodations.
Sure, so
Yes, yeah.
obviously the bicycle racks are an easy one, both interior and exterior. I think obviously the commercial goes back to Chris's comments about a specific choice by the developer not to include it because of other vacancies, but certainly hearing it twice now, that's, something we'll bring back to the development team and see if there's any other options there. And then certainly with the historical nature of Ward Wellington Ward and what Mike's described in our conversation with Landmark Preservation Board, I think we have that covered.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Great.
Yes, all set,
Thank
thank you.
you. Question?
I just had a quick question. Kraus Ave is slated for significant improvements and changes due to the I-81 project. Did you take that into account in your project when you?
We sure did,
Okay.
yeah.
Because they didn't take it.
Yeah,
in your outlook.
yeah, obviously, part of the draw of this too, right, is what will happen with I-81. And I think as we mentioned a couple times, when you do look at the project, Kraus Ave will become one of the major points to get between up the hill and down to University and off of 690. So this will be a major corridor, and things like moving our garage entrance, which used to be on South Kraus, we've moved that to Fayette so that there's less of a traffic impact with respect to that. We're eliminating curb cuts, and there are no curb cuts except for the pull-off and drop-off area that we talked about.
Questions from the staff perspective? Okay, good. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward, provide your name and address in your comments. Either application, the re-subdivision of the project site review. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to either application? If so, come forward, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me? My name is Beth Trunfio. I am a Syracuse City resident in the Strathmore neighborhood at 219 Twin Hills Drive, which was teeming with trick-or-treaters this evening, which we were happy to see, hundreds in fact. I'm also the executive director of the Central New York Ronald McDonald House, but it is not for that I am wearing this hat tonight. I am a volunteer board president for the East Genesee Regents Association. The EGRA is a not-for-profit organization which includes property owners, businesses, not-for-profit social, cultural, and religious organizations in the East Genesee Street District. Our board has met, and while we do not object to the construction of the apartment complex, there are two concerns that our board has expressed, and we'd like the City Planning Commission to require these changes in any resolution that it makes regarding this project. And I'll cover the first, which is parking. The developer is proposing to build a 315-unit apartment building, and under the regulations for a Business A district, such an apartment building is required to provide one parking space for each unit in the building. According to the developer's application, they are planning to provide only 130 parking spaces for the project. We find that parking solution to be insufficient, and we want the parking standard to be met. And I will say, for as long as I've been involved in the EGRA and for the 23 plus years or so, I don't think there's been a meeting where we haven't talked about parking and concerns, and it's only become more and more prevalent. As you're aware, the EGRA Business District is a neighborhood commercial district, and while we are directly adjacent to downtown, our parking situation is very different. In downtown, there are multiple garages and lots which operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's relatively easy to accommodate resident parking demands in garages and lots that are not on site but are close enough for residents to walk. This is not the case in the East Genesee Street District. Most of the parking garages and lots in our district are, one, owned by institutions which need their parking for their own uses 24 hours a day, and therefore do not lease them out for other users, and two, are operated on a limited daytime basis only and are only open for event parking in the evenings, or three, are required to meet the parking needs of existing users and therefore have already been set aside for hotel patrons or their own residents. The only public supply of parking readily available are the parking meters on the street. The use of on-street parking for residents is particularly concerning for us because this parking is used largely for visitors to the district, the cultural organizations such as the Stage, Syracuse Stage, Community Folk Art Gallery, the restaurants, the other religious institutions in the district. Many of these users operate on nights and weekends and need the parking for their patrons. We cannot allow that on-street parking to be taken by residents because it will undermine the viability of the very cultural, restaurant, and religious organizations that make up East Genesee Street area and desirable place in which to live. We need the street parking to be maintained for turnover spaces for visitors. I'm sure that all the members of the City Planning Commission are well aware of the intent to build the community grid solution out. A prominent feature of the community grid is the new Irving and Krause interchange. As a result of those new interchanges, our business district is going to lose parking to accommodate street parking to accommodate much greater number of vehicles, expected to number 30,000 a day, both on Krause and Irving, north of East Genesee Street. In order to accommodate this much larger flow, NISDOT is going to eliminate the parking on those streets and loading areas there as well. We've met with NISDOT and the city to understand how the loss will be made whole, but we haven't received a response as of yet. Given the construction and the permanent removal of those spaces, we cannot afford to have on-street meters occupied by residential parking. And finally, then there's the matter of equity among developers. Other housing developers have been required to meet the standard. Some have done it by building their own garages or have acquired off-site parking to accommodate those residences. While we are open to any solution the developer puts forward, we do not want to set the precedent that a residential developer will be able to build in this district and provide only 40% of the required parking. It's much too low. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you able to leave a copy of that statement with the staff, with our staff?
Sure, we can
For
do
the
that.
record, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward.
My name's Dave Mankiewicz. I live at 460 South First Street in Fulton, New York. But I'm here speaking on behalf of the East Genesee Region Association, largely because of the 2-minute limit. The other comment we want to make supports the comments that Ms. Peters made earlier. The lack of commercial space on the ground floor is a major concern of the East Genesee Region Association. It does not create anything of visual interest for the public. We would like the project plan to be changed to include a requirement that uses that will allow the general public to use and interact with the building. This is particularly important to us on the East Genesee frontage and on the Krause Avenue at that intersection and back. The East Genesee area is a small business district. We rely on those small businesses to provide the needed services to those who live and work in our district. The acquisition and demolition of the existing buildings is going to eliminate small businesses such as the dental practice that's right at East Genesee and Krause now, and the barber shop at East Fayette and South Krause Avenue. We know that the Commission doesn't always make this requirement. However, in the cases where it has not been required, it's usually because the building was set far back from the street, such as the building that was now being built on the site of the Collegian Hotel, the former Genesee Grand, or the Laurel, where the Gilbane project is fronting on Wellington Avenue, Wellington Place, which is not a major pedestrian street. However, Theory Syracuse has successfully integrated a restaurant on the ground floor. It's there. And their leasing agent told us that they have leased out the other spaces and they're going to be opening shortly. And we also like to note that you have Peaks Coffee is successful at the 505 on Walnut, and the plan for the proposed building to be under construction at the site of the former First Church of Christ Scientists includes the renovation of a former sanctuary for commercial users. We've also greatly benefited from the influx of restaurants into the district, such as Exo Taco, the Buried Acorn, and the expansion of Strong Hearts in our district. We want to preserve the mixed-use nature of the districts, which can accommodate residential demand and small businesses. It is clearly in the intent of the zoning ordinance to maintain the mix of uses. We do not want to lose more commercial, retail, or service space. And with the increase in residential units that have already been approved in the district, and with Krause Avenue, as you all noted, about to become a major entrance that NISDOT predicts will carry 30,000 cars a day, there is plenty of opportunity for a good developer to bring in those commercial uses. As one of our board members said at our meeting on this project, we want to preserve the mixed-use nature of the neighborhood. We want to be welcoming and not bland. People shouldn't be given the impression that this is a place just to drive through. We want them to stop and visit. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. I don't see any other speakers. We offer the applicant the opportunity to address some of those comments that you just heard in opposition.
I think just generally the topic of the commercial space and the mixed-use space has come up multiple times. I think that was a purposeful floor plan that we had created, but understanding that, I think we can go back to the developer and talk about both that and the parking. The parking count, again, is comparable, has a lot to do with, even though some of the other projects were compliant with parking, they had many more physical beds in their project than we do. So we kind of tried to take that into consideration, but understand fully that the parking as a whole could be impacted, and see if there's something that we can talk with the developer about that as well.
Thank you, and thank you for your receptivity to the comments that you heard tonight. Based on what I'm hearing, I'm recommending that we hold the hearing open, allow you the opportunity to have dialogue with the owner, and return perhaps with some revisions based on the comments here tonight.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one more clarification? I was just sitting here listening and I was thinking about the density waiver and the relationship to rezone, since Ms. Capella-Peters opened that door for us. I'm just kidding. So I just wanted to point out that in the mixed use zones and rezone, you have no density requirement if it's mixed use. And without saying too much, it's almost certain that the adopted version of rezone will have something similar to an affordable housing component above and beyond any minimum requirement. So so that we're clear, like rezone MX4 doesn't allow any density. There is a condition, there is an incentive that it is mixed use and has commercial on the first floor. And there's also incentives built in for extra floor for interior parking like they proposed and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples there.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, any final comments, questions? Okay, so both hearings will remain open. We'll be back on the 20th, and you can share any updates that have emerged between now and then.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much.
The next public hearings are companion applications, starting with R2257, a re-subdivision to combine 9 properties into, I stand corrected, to combine 5 properties into 1 new lot, situated at 701 and 723 Hiawatha Boulevard West, and 441, 449, and 459 to 475 Pulaski Street. This is a companion application to a special permit for manufacturing to expand an existing use at properties at 701 and 723 Hiawatha Boulevard West, and 441, 449, and 459 to 475 Pulaski Street. Anaplate Corporation is the owner, and Jim Stevenson is the applicant, and these properties lie within a lakefront T5 zoning district.
Thank you. My name is Julian Clark. I'm with Plumley Engineering. We're the civil engineers for the project. With me tonight is Jim Stevenson with Anaplate and Bill Blanchard over there with VIP Structures. Anaplate is located on the corner of Hiawatha Boulevard and Pulaski Street. Manufacturing facility that's looking to expand. In doing so, they acquired 2 other parcels, one along Hiawatha and one along Pulaski. As mentioned, we are going to talk about doing a subdivision of all those parcels into one. And then also the expansion of the facility, which will include a 759 square foot small addition in the southwest corner of the main facility. This is their main facility right here on Hiawatha. There'll be a small expansion right here to fill in the corner. And then they'll be doing a 21,500 square foot larger addition that will connect to the main facility.
I'm sorry, can you just point those out one more time?
Yes. 750 square foot right here in the corner of the main facility.
Okay.
And then right here is the larger facility, which will have 3 connections to the main building.
Okay.
And then there's a separate building over here, a fabrication building that they acquired that they're currently renovating. There'll be some truck parking and a truck loop provided, a new driveway on the Hiawatha, 2 new driveways onto Pulaski Street. Stormwater management, landscaping, et cetera, will be provided, utility connections. We've had a couple meetings with the city departments. We've received some comments from Jeff, which we can go over if you want. Jim wanted to give a little brief discussion on what Anaplate does.
Sure. Thanks, Julian. Thank you guys for your time. We appreciate it.
If you just provide your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. Jim Stevenson, 459 Pulaski Street, Syracuse.
Thanks.
So first of all, thank you for the work you guys do to keep our city growing, prospering, and balancing all these different needs. As Julian said, I'm the president, CEO of Anaplate, second generation. So I want to share with you guys a little bit about what we do, who we are, and kind of the impact of this project on our community. We've been in the city of Syracuse for 62 years. My father started the company in April of 1960 with one of these small buildings. He and my mother met at Syracuse University, had 8 children, started this company. What we do is provide critical finishing services to many industries: aerospace, defense, medical, warehouse automation, and chip manufacturing companies, just to name a few. So our customers are local, they're national, we have a few overseas. They can be a small machine shop that relies on our service, many in Syracuse and the surrounding area, as well as large Fortune 500 companies. Many of these local and national companies rely on our team to produce their products to get to the end customer. Whether you're relying on robots in a warehouse to deliver your product to your home, whether you have implant parts in your family's body, or maybe just took a trip on an airplane and the brakes and engine worked, a lot of those components go through a facility like ours or ours. So flight critical, people's lives depend on what we do. We're also very important to the food chain. All these large manufacturers in our community can't grow, they can't respond, they can't keep product flowing without the service, what we provide. Over the years, we've grown from this one building to many buildings. We're a 215-person company growing. We have more than $1 million of payroll per month. We've got a significant investment in the Syracuse community for many, many decades. We spend $6 million annually on local products and service from this community. We also spend about $250,000 in the city of Syracuse for water and close to $300,000 in real estate taxes. We also contribute both time and treasure. Our team, whether it's the United Way, Southwest Community Center, the Race for Cure, Rescue Mission, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and many more. So we're very community and civic minded. We've got a proven track record in Syracuse for our team, for our customers, and giving back to the community. And just to share a little bit, we also get 50% of our customers come from outside the state. So we are attracting business from outside the area to come here. And with this project, it's going to let us continue, expand, and grow. There's a large need locally, nationally, for the products and services that we do. And with this expansion, we'll be able to continue to serve Syracuse and the local community. So in closing, like I said, we need this really to grow here in Syracuse, add more jobs for the Syracuse residents. Also, so we can serve our customers so the rest of the world can get the products that we need. As we say in our company, we don't want to be part of the supply chain challenge or problem. And it's also to improve our facility for our workforce of today. We need to continue to modernize and update for our customers. And with one of these recent purchases, about a year ago, there was 450 junk cars parked there for 20 years, stacked up 8 or 10 high. There was a dog in a cage there that the city had to be called. Our folks were feeding it. So we certainly believe we've been continuing to upgrade our surrounding areas and look forward to your questions on this project. Thank you.
Do you have other locations, or does your workforce of 200 plus all work at this location on Hiawatha?
So we have this facility in one kitty corner, but yeah, all in Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
Those 215 people are in Syracuse.
Okay.
We're also at 400 Pulaski Street as well.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Did you want to go back to finish your part of the presentation?
Do you want me to go through Jeff's comment?
I would like clarification first.
Okay.
I may have misheard you. I thought I heard you say the new building in the rear is going to have 3 ramps to the existing building?
3 connections to the existing building, yes.
Okay. The floor plan sheet A101, if I'm reading it correctly, is showing 4 connections. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. Thank you.
Yep.
So Yes, please address Jeff's comments, and the other thing that would be really helpful is the waivers that the project will require to move forward. If you could provide rationale for each of those waivers that are listed. I trust you've seen those
Yes.
previously. Okay, great.
I guess
So
we'll start.
whatever order you want to do
Yeah,
them in
we'll
is
start with the
fine.
subdivision then. We're looking to combine 5 parcels into one. For the city code, you're not allowed to have more than one dwelling on a lot, but in order for our business to operate properly, we need to have the multiple buildings on one parcel. So we would like the waiver for the multiple buildings on one lot to do our subdivision.
Hey, can you say that again?
If I'm understanding the code correctly, you're not allowed to have more than one building on your parcel. We have 2 buildings. So we would like to have multiple buildings on one parcel so we could complete our subdivision.
Thank you.
All right, so one of Jeff's comments was, there's currently plus or minus 14 parking spaces that back directly onto Pulaski Street.
Can I ask a question, sir? Yeah. So you're asking for this waiver to have multiple buildings on this parcel, correct?
Correct.
How is that stopping your business from working? Why do you need, because you're not explaining to us why you need the buildings on one parcel, you're just telling us like basically what you want, but you're not justifying why. Like how is that stopping your operation? You're not, because you didn't answer the question.
Yeah, so we have processes that are connected. So to build an entire facility across the street on our existing land, we'd have another building on another lot. But because of our processes and our people having that all located in the same facility, from, piping, boiler returns, air compressors, boilers, so it's not economically possible to have, from a cost standpoint, to duplicate every one of our large major pieces of equipment. Is that?
That's your answer? That's it. I can't tell you what to say. I'm just asking for a better answer.
Yeah. Yep.
Just for clarification, the deviation in question is item 20 in your report, and it's not that multiple buildings are not allowed in the Lakefront District. It's that one principal building and one outbuilding may be built on each lot. And the applicant is proposing to construct 3 additional buildings, 2 of which are to be connected in addition to 2 existing buildings. So it's not that you're having more than one building on each lot, it's that you're exceeding the number of buildings that are allowed within the Lakefront District.
Which is why I asked for a better explanation.
So the buildings connected with the corridors are considered different buildings?
Correct, and
they're principally the same. So we need to separate them with those borders for fire protection. And also because of the soil that area is, the pilings and the weight from a structural standpoint, we can't connect it to the building directly.
It'd be cost prohibitive to do a direct connection. It's much more economically feasible to have corridors, connect the buildings, and then build a separate building on piling.
So just for clarification, within the lakefront, you have a principal building, which is the main building, and that would be considered 459. You have an outbuilding, which would be an ancillary buildings, such as the fabrication building, or even the proposed addition behind the main building. That 2,900, 2,700 foot addition would be considered an outbuilding. But then you have a back building, which is the structure, in this case, 4 of the ramps. The ramps are considered back buildings that connect a principal building to an outbuilding. So that's all lakefront language. You're typically allowed one principal building and one outbuilding, and they can be connected by back buildings, a lot of buildings there. But you are proposing additional buildings to the two that would be allowed. And you've provided your justification. I just want to explain for clarity's sake, if that's any clearer, what the actual deviation is.
So the ramps connecting the buildings are buildings? Did you just say
Well,
something?
they're enclosed.
But they're separate
They would be
buildings?
considered back buildings, if anything. Or you don't even have to consider them. The addition would be considered the outbuilding.
So the 20,000 square foot building addition is a building in what you just read, but it's then connected in 4 places to the existing building. You're saying the actual connections are considered buildings themselves?
Yes, they would be considered back buildings.
Really?
Yes. That's what they would be called. They are a structure connecting the principal building to an outbuilding.
Is in and of itself considered okay? That's why we're revising the zoning ordinance. Okay.
It would be 4 pretty small buildings.
They're like hallways.
That's what they are, connectors.
Provided purely to make it more economically feasible to build the main addition.
That's understandable. I was.
All learning something tonight.
We all learned.
All right, sorry.
Sorry for the, please continue.
It's Google Earth images of what the front looks like on a flat street. Through here.
So we can chair.
Yeah, we can.
I got this.
So what we don't have
So as I was saying, Pulaski Street, they currently have plus or minus 14 spaces that basically got to back onto Pulaski Street to get out of them. The comment from Jeff and the DPW was to remove those spaces, and we are going to do that. We're going to get rid of all those driveways, provide 6-inch curb and grass and a new public sidewalk. We are requesting to keep 3 of those loading bays as they're needed for the facility.
So you would have curb cuts just for those 3 loading bays?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And there's currently 6 overhead doors there. 3 would be basically sealed off via the grass and the access. To make up for the parking, we're gonna have a parking lot between the 2 buildings. And again, we need the 3 loading bays on Pulaski Street for the system, for the way this company operates. Next comment was allowable building material on the addition. We had originally proposed a metal siding. We are proposing now, we would provide a brick facade on the Hiawatha Street side and maintain the sheet metal siding on the other 3 sides that are basically not visible from the city street. And as far as the comment on the openings, the window or doors openings are required to be higher than they are wider. Or be square. We are proposing to go with all square for the windows. And the overhead doors and man doors are already higher than they are lower. And just a point of clarification, there is no windows currently on the Hiawatha side proposed, but there is an overhead door now proposed.
This question for staff. Does the applicant have
He had previous versions, and then he had the DPW transportation comments were provided to him under separate cover.
Yes, I do have the DPW comments. And we are well aware that we need to SWIP and stormwater management agreement with the city, but that's in process.
So this site plan which, I'm looking for a date, but I see the date, but does this site plan then address all of these 10/20/22, October 20th, 22 comments by the transportation planner?
I did not put the note in above that.
But other than that, you've responded to, okay. Because I'm trying to read the small print, and it looks like you have, but I'm gonna cheat and ask you to tell me.
I got
that.
a large.
Okay.
I have a full-size one if you want.
No, it's okay. I've asked the question, you've answered, I appreciate that.
I believe I've addressed Jeff's comments, the four main comments he had with regard to the layout.
Okay, are there comments or questions from the commission members
All set.
for the applicant?
All the department's comments were related to the applicant. No questions. Thank you.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you both very much. Let's see if there are others who wish to speak to these applications. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of either application for this project on Hiawatha Boulevard and Pulaski Street, either the re-subdivision or the special permit? R-22-57 and SP-2213.
So I had several folks send in letters. I don't know if you received those. I have 4. One from Center State CEO, one from Rametco Sales, a neighbor, and one from 110 Metalworks, and Falter Construction. I have copies of all those because Halloween they couldn't be here.
Let's get those into the record, please. When are they dated, or are they all different dates?
They're not sounding familiar, and I don't have any.
That's not last one.
Friday. Again, how the method of delivery. Yeah, maybe we could send a,
This is just the Center State one? Oh, they're all together. Oh,
Thank you.
collection. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Brief. Thank you for providing those, and so now we have a set for the file. Perfect. Where were we? Anyone who wanted to speak in favor of the application, please come forward. Provide your name, address, and comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. We have no speakers, apparently, for either of these two applications. Before I rush to judgment on what we do with these two public hearings, any outstanding questions or issues where we might need additional data or information, or
Nope, all set.
we're in a good spot to close both of the public hearings, and then we will proceed one at a time to deal with the re-subdivision issue and the special permit manufacturing issue. So with that in mind, let me suggest we begin with R-22-57, which is the re-subdivision application. Is there a motion for action on that application?
Move approval with a negative declaration. Second.
Discussion on the motion? Not all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The re-subdivision for this project is approved, and that moves us to SP-22-13, which is the special permit associated with that subdivision. Is there a motion for action on this item?
Move approval with a negative declaration, granting whichever waivers are still required, because he mentioned changing the building material, so I don't know if that one will still need to be required.
For the record, they proposed changing the finishing material facing Hiawatha Boulevard.
Right. So our issue is what, with all 4 elevations?
Correct. You would still have to grant the waiver.
Okay. Then I include that. And as long as all of the transportation planners' conditions are met.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SP-22-13 is approved for the special permit. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
I think that exhausts our public hearings for this evening, but not our business.
You may wish to circle back to SP 2211 in case anyone showed up.
Oh, wait.
22.
Item number 1.
Oh, I got it. Thank you. So, last call.
But it doesn't look like it.
Anyone wishing to speak on the special permit for the transitional parking lot proposed for Wayne Street? The application number is SP-22-11. If you wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to that project, please come forward. Yeah, but that was after the advertising. So
we're gonna keep.
Again, no one here to speak on that. As we indicated earlier, we will continue to hold this hearing open for the next meeting of the Planning Commission. That now takes us through the end of our docket of hearings for this evening, but not the end of our business. So on to old business. Would you please introduce that application?
Yes, the one item of old business on tonight's schedule is SP 2204. It's a special permit for a restaurant on property situated at 3902 to 3916 and 3922 South Salina Street. ARG AR16PCK001 LLC is the property owner, and Gail Craig Thompson is the applicant, and the properties lie within a business Class A zoning district. The Planning Commission held a series of public hearings ranging from August 8th through October 11th, and closed the public hearing on October 11th. Because the public hearing was closed on October 11th, the Commission must render a decision no later than December 12th, I guess I came up with, of this year, or the application will receive automatic approval. The proposal still requires 107 off-street parking spaces. I met with the applicant this morning. I talked to the applicant's representative. I do have a revised site plan to hand out. And I will defer to legal or to the law department to see if we need to reopen the public hearing. There are a couple avenues that the Planning Commission can look at for parking. Right now, with the site plan, I believe the applicant, I'd have to count the spaces. I don't know off the top of my head. The applicant was going to provide parking on at Valley Plaza and Family Dollar. I have not received any legal documentation for that property or for that parking to be under their control. I will say that the applicants are here this evening if the Planning Commission has any questions. So with respect to the parking, with the understanding that based on the customer area of the restaurant, there's a requirement of 107 parking spaces. The applicant has asked for a parking waiver. You can accept the site plan with the parking provided on site, granting a parking waiver for the remainder of the parking with the understanding that any after-hours parking available at Family Dollar and/or Valley Plaza has been offered as justification for waiving that parking. Or you can require the applicant to obtain additional parking through leases to decrease the amount of parking to be waived. But again, to date, I don't have, as far as I know, what I would consider signed leases for any additional parking.
It looks as though it's about 36 spaces on this revised plan, but I may not have added correctly. And I think at the last time, we were also talking about the possibility of the business neighbor immediately south. What's the business? Burger King or Dunkin' Donuts providing...
It was a Burger King.
Burger King,
My
providing some...
understanding, Burger King has said they are not going to be providing any parking.
Okay. So that
right now,
option's off the table.
the sites to be considered for any waiver justification would be the Family Dollar and Valley Plaza.
Valley Plaza.
And it would be after-hours parking.
Okay. And tell us again the date you had calculated for kind of our drop dead date.
December 12th. I would also submit to the council that you could consider a conditional approval of the waiver conditioned upon receipt by my office of appropriate agreements with the two entities who are allegedly providing the additional parking at a number which I will rely on Jeff to give
supply.
me the additional number of, in the aggregate, the additional number of parking spots required.
Okay.
And without that, they wouldn't be able to get their permit.
Unless you wanted to waive parking, given the available parking on site and the potential use of unsecured parking at these other sites after hours. But it would be up to you.
Well,
It looks like the representative, I'm sorry.
this doesn't work. So, for example, there's a gate in the middle of a couple of parking spaces. The ones on Ballantyne would have to back out across the sidewalk to get out. And I don't have a scale, but it looks like if you park head into the building and head into Salina Street, the drive alley between the two is not enough for double-loaded parking. So I don't know that we could count on these numbers as being real numbers.
I have not been able to refer this particular site plan to the transportation planner for review.
Well, at a minimum, that would be helpful, but the way I'm looking at it from a design perspective, there's some issues, and I don't have a scale, so I can't, it's hard for me to tell what I'm looking at from it. So if that's 10. Yeah, I'd be guessing if I did it. I don't want to do that. I see we also have more comments from the community that came in about how the property is currently being used and what's being observed in the neighborhood.
I'm not familiar with.
That came in after the public hearing?
I don't know what the state, maybe it was from the last time. I apologize, I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Okay.
Was that dated? Yes, that was for the last meeting.
It was,
Sorry.
yeah. As well as the petitions.
I did receive this today from their representative.
Let's see, there's a number on here.
If it's after the fact?
It's for parking.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Spaces.
Spaces, because this doesn't work.
So on here, they were saying,
You can't get to the dumpster if these are like this.
36 on the plan.
I think we're trying to put 5 pounds of.
I would offer
10
to the
pounds of
planning
sugar,
commission that if there is inclination to approve the application in any way, you can condition any approval on whatever parking requirements you want. Again, you can go with, you don't have to make a decision tonight. You can provide further guidance on how much parking you would be comfortable waiving, if any, or any other guidance on any other limitations you may have. Keeping in mind there are still a number of waivers that the application necessitates.
Remind me again, the required number of parking spaces is
107.
107, thank you.
I could be mistaken because I don't have my notes in front of me, but I believe at the last hearing, the understanding is that the applicant was going to enter into agreements with adjoining property owners in order to, in the aggregate, in combination of what they had on site and then the overflow, they would have a total of the 107 required. So Jeff handed out this evening what appears to be an agreement with the Valley Plaza owner for 30 of those spots. I know that we haven't had an opportunity to work with the planner to determine how many viable spots are on site, but if the commission is comfortable saying 107 spots are required, or you could say 100 if you want to give a waiver for whatever. I'm not suggesting that, but if you told us the number of spots you were comfortable approving, we could issue a conditional approval. They would have to demonstrate to my office the appropriate agreements with adjacent landowners that would, in conjunction with the number of spots on site, equal that number.
That's helpful.
that's what I tried to say.
But what do we do about the other complaints, though? I lost right of
From the professor.
those. So they were only gonna be open till 11, but they've now been over until 2. Did they talk about that last time when I wasn't here? 8:30 to 2 a.m.
It is near a residential district.
Yeah, and we have to approve all the what's it called, amplified, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that was another thing too. It's like the speaker entertainment.
Yeah.
What other waivers were required on this one beyond the parking?
The proposal continues to necessitate a waiver to maintain a 40-foot wide driveway on South Salina Street. A waiver from the on-site curbing requirements along the southerly and southwesterly property boundaries. A waiver of the outside storage screening requirement. They're showing a dumpster enclosure, but they're not. The site plan does not illustrate a screen in front of the opening. A waiver to maintain a street line treatment area with a width of 6 feet along South Salina Street and 7 feet along Valentine Road. This is a waiver from the 8-foot buffer. This waiver would essentially maintain the existing buffer that's currently on site. A waiver to allow live and/or electronically amplified entertainment within 300 feet of a residential zoning district. And then a waiver to allow parking for live and/or electronically amplified entertainment at 4141 South Salina Street because it exceeds any parking for live and/or electronically amplified entertainment must be either adjacent to or directly across the street from the source of entertainment. The parking at 4141 South Salina Street doesn't meet this requirement. It's not directly across the street. It's a little bit further south, I believe. And then a waiver to maintain an existing parking area with a setback from South Salina Street of approximately 7 feet in lieu of the required 10 feet.
And we just said that the transportation planner hasn't seen this site plan, right? I'm sorry, I
The one
losing
that was
track.
issued tonight, they have not had a chance to review.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this just doesn't, I can't read any of the numbers either. I wish I could read them. Is this 20, what is that? Is that 24? What is that, 34? What do you think?
That's not even like legible.
Yeah.
I would say 30. It's not a 2, it's
So
definitely a
then-
3.
So this is, I mean, here's a gate.
It's going to rework some of this.
And they're not gonna do daytime stuff, but if they were, if this is perfect, then you can't get into the dumpster.
Again, the commission is not required to render a decision tonight. If you want to provide time for the transportation planner to review the plan and to consider the revisions, that's up to you.
What's the sense of the body? Is there movement or for a motion on this tonight, or is there a desire to see what the transportation planner's comments might be?
I would suggest, I know we won't get open, but if we have time and it's not gonna expire, I would suggest we let the transportation planner take a look, and that they have one more chance to talk to the representative about they have one letter in hand, right, for parking.
Right, right. So the hearing's been closed, but so the clock is ticking and moves us to December the 12th or whatever the date was for action. So action needs to happen by that date.
Meet in November.
And we do, the 20th. And when's our December meeting? 20th, 10, no, it will fall after the 12th, a couple days after the 12th. But the parking issue is a big one, and that's unresolved as of this moment. I think, given the proximity to the residential district, waiving a significant number of the parking spaces is problematic. It introduces a burden on the neighboring residential district. I'd love to see compliance with the 107 or something very close to it, like 100 spots being secured. And while we don't need to take action perhaps tonight, maybe a little direction to guide the applicant might indicate where time should be spent between now and the next meeting to try to firm up a few details.
I would have to confirm it, but it appears December 12th is a Monday, and it would be a commission meeting night.
Oh,
So you have November 21st
take it right up to the edge.
and December 12th.
Well,
I might offer also that if you choose to hold it tonight, that you direct the applicant to come back in November with evidence of the necessary spots totaling 107, which would require the Transportation Commissioner to look at the plan that was submitted today, identify the number of viable spots, would let them know how many additional spots they need, and they've already given us proof of 30. They can aggregate the balance and come ready with those letters. I think that would address the commission's concerns about parking. To give them clear direction.
I think at a minimum, that's our advice. There's a part of me that's worried that we're trying to put 10 pounds of sugar into a 5-pound bag. And unless we can grapple with the parking, and we haven't really talked about, and I don't know if you did this in my absence last time, the idea of amplified music, and apparently people in the community said they were concerned about that. I don't know if that was discussed or addressed at the last meeting. But again, at a minimum, I agree with Steve that the parking for this kind of facility needs to be addressed. The hours of operation related to that parking, and until there's a more usable plan for parking on the property, it would appear to me that it's going to have to be parking that's staffed. Because if it's this tight, somebody's got to be making sure people aren't parking where they shouldn't be parking once we agree to a site plan, if we get to that point. So I think the applicants need to think about that somebody might, once there is a site plan that's viable, that's usable, that's safe, it would appear based on some of the comments we received from the public that someone's going to have to be on site to make sure the parking's being used when we come up with a configuration. So that's something these folks need to think about, because that's a cost to them in running the business. But I think it's fair to say that, because it's so tight. And when people are in a rush, and we've probably all done this ourselves, you squeeze your car in at that last minute so you can get someplace. And that leads to the problems for the balance of the neighborhood. So I just want to put that out there, that I think that's something that would have to be addressed once we get a viable site plan.
certainly. Why don't you come to the podium and use the microphone so we can hear you?
How you doing? I'm Wayne Thompson.
You're the applicant.
The applicant. Okay, Jim, this is a new site plan, as y'all see, and he put 5 spaces in the gated area and on the right-hand side, and 5 spaces on the left-hand side. And it also, we was gonna close off the Ballantyne entrance that comes in. We're gonna close that off and put 4 cars there. And it's 6 spaces and 13 spaces in front of the building, and there's 10 spaces on the other side from the front of the building. And there's room enough, if a car backs up, a car could back up all the way and without touching any of these cars. It's room enough for that.
Yeah, I guess I can't read his, it's so small, I just can't read the dimensions
yes,
know that.
It's
and
room.
I think one of the comments that we received, someone said that in practice it didn't, that they actually saw when you had cars there that it didn't look like it was working.
Oh, no,
But
it's enough room to come in and to back out without even approaching any of the other cars.
Well, I think, again, because we're just seeing this, that hopefully if the transportation planner has a chance to look at it, that would take care of some of my concerns, because he might be able to discern what's on here that I can't see, or he can talk to your architect and get clarification. It's just that I can't tell that by what I'm looking at. And so,
okay.
And I appreciate that he tried to get as many spaces as possible, but I think in practice, some of them really aren't gonna be able to be used, especially in the heat of the moment if you have an event. and that's just a concern that I have. So I think the transportation planner just needs to take a look at this and maybe chat with your architect to have better
So
understanding of what he was drawing.
So there's no way that we could get a waiver on that and contingent of the transportation, get approval?
Say that again?
Is there any way that we could get, I said,
Like a conditional approval, is that what you're trying to say?
right, contingent on the transportation to look at this?
I think there's other stuff. I think we have to wait.
I think we need to have the dust settle, if you will, on the parking situation first, because other concerns are related to that. And so knowing the exact number of workable parking spaces that a transportation professional evaluates for us will be the input that we're looking to figure out where we go on this, and whether a parking waiver is needed, or whether between what's workable on site plus the 30 that you already provided for and any additional ones that you can provide for, whether we need to think about a waiver, or whether it could all be taken care of through those.
Okay, right, okay, because all together with our parking, with the, it's up here right in the corner, it's 41 parking, it's right in the right-hand corner, it's 41 parking on site, and it's 35 parking from Valley Plaza, and there's 20 parking from Family Dollar, so that's 96 parking spaces. It's in the right-hand corner of the site
Right,
plan.
but the 35 on the site plan from associated with Valley Plaza doesn't match the 30 that's in the letter that we have from Ellicott Development Corporation. They only committed to 30, not 35, and we haven't seen anything to
For
confirm.
clarification, I think the Ellicott letter pertains to Valley Plaza at 4141 South Salina Street.
But it's still only 30.
It's not 35, it's 30.
Correct, whereas.
The site plan says
I'm
there are.
sorry, I'm confusing
It says there's
myself.
5 more spaces
You
over
are
there.
correct.
And it says there are 20 spaces associated with Family Dollar, but we don't know that we haven't seen any documentation
Well,
from
we
Family
got-
Dollar to confirm that.
I gave Jeff a letter, okay, the manager at Family Dollar wrote a letter for me to get to Jeff, and I gave it to Jeff this morning, and she said if that letter is not enough for y'all, she will call corporate, and corporate will give us a letterhead, so we can give it to you.
I think you should just start with that in the beginning, like, just have the actual letterhead, rather than going off of that, because now you're dealing with her approving something that corporate hasn't even seen. So that can be problematic. So I would say just go straight to corporate and have them give you the approval to go from there. My next question will be, as far as the Valley Plaza parking lot, I guess why, I don't know why, but I guess ultimately it's like, I'm concerned in why they're only, excuse me, it's nice that they're open to it, but why they're only open to just giving you 30?
Because
and then your hours of being open, I think also plays a role in like where people can park and how much parking is available, because residentially, there's not a lot of parking space. I'm very familiar with the area.
Right, right.
With that parking lot, it's a pretty big parking lot.
Right.
And if you can concisely express what your hours of being open are, that may help some of the parking issue.
Right.
We've been told numerous things on what your actual hours are and events taking place during times, or it's a lot, and I think all that needs to be explained to better help some of these other issues.
Right.
Do you follow?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
We open when Valley Plaza is closed.
Okay, so I think you should maybe have that conversation with them and see if you can use more of their parking lot. Because outside of that, this, like, we're stretching by potentially approving this with these parking issues and considering the residential, like, concerns with this project in totality.
I think where we are is we want the transportation planner's analysis of the new plan that we received tonight for parking on site. And we want to see how close to the 107 we can get between what's available on site plus the Bailey Plaza commitment of 30 that we received, and any additional one which may come from Family Dollar or perhaps another nearby business. Am I capturing the key elements plus?
Yes.
Yes.
And we understand that Burger King is here and told us they could be involved, and then I guess something happened above the surface level that now they're taking that back. So we understand it's not on the applicant, but that's.
Right, that's.
Actually, I thought the Burger King guy said no locally, but it doesn't really matter. But then he said yes. Oh, okay, sorry. Gotcha. Okay.
But he basically explained why.
Does that provide some clarity in terms of next steps and the information gaps we need to fill in order to?
Yes, it does.
And if the applicant has a question about that, your understanding is clear enough that a phone call could?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I may have to go back and rewatch this on YouTube a couple of times, but.
Oh, that's scary.
I was planning to do the same.
Okay.
We know it's a lot of trips here. We understand that. It's a lot of trips to come see us. It's,
Okay.
we're trying. Everybody's trying to get you as close as possible.
Right.
That was our old business, and we have additional new business, correct?
There are three new business items. The first one is SR 1607M2, a site plan review for antenna to modify an existing tower-mounted antenna array on properties situated at 829 and 831 West Genesee Street. Independent CA Professionals LLC is the property owner. Robert Wilson with Pyramid Network Services LLC is the applicant, and the property lies in a commercial Class A zoning district. The applicant's requesting to replace 9 panel antennas and 9 remote radio heads with 9 new antennas and RRHs on an existing tower-mounted 12 antenna array on these properties. The modification will not increase or decrease the total number of sectors, antennas, or RRHs, and the array will continue to consist of 3 sectors with 4 antennas and 3 RRHs per sector. The proposal does not necessitate any new or expanded waivers from the zoning rules and regulations.
Thank you. Are there questions about this site plan review for the antennas?
I'm all set.
All set.
Thank
You. This application is complete. Is there a motion for action?
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SR 16-07M2 is approved. We have
The next 2 items are time extensions. They are companion cases. R 1846 is a re-subdivision to divide 1 property into 2 new lots. Z 2805 was a project plan review for exterior and site alterations. This was on property situated at 312 Fillmore Avenue. Loretto Housing Development Fund Company Incorporated is the owner and the applicant, and the property lies within a planned institutional district. This is the 3rd time extension for these 2 items. The City Planning Commission approved the re-subdivision as well as the project plan on December 10th, 2018. The approvals established a requirement, A, to file the approved subdivision map no later than February 11th, 2019, and to complete all construction related to the proposal by December 10, 2019. The City Planning Commission did grant a couple time extensions, the first in December of 2019 and the second in November of 2020. The applicant is requesting a third time extension in order to accommodate New York State DOT construction activities related to the I-81 project, as well as the installation of a new water line. The extended date to file the Mylar would be June 30th. I think I have the wrong year of 2024, for the re-subdivision. But to complete the construction would be June 30th, 2024.
That's not gonna happen.
But
It says-
I think they are
It says
requesting
24
months, so yes, the
Yeah.
filing date would be June 30th, 2024.
So they alluded to the I-81 activity. Did they explain how that affected their project directly?
No.
At one point, they were gonna eliminate that bridge. And I think they talked DOT back into it, but I don't know if it's for sure yet.
And they're building on, whatever, they're staging. Staging some of this stuff.
It's a little different.
I did not receive any further information other than the letter from EDR in your packet.
Any advice from the law department on this one? And any guidance in terms of number of time extension requests it's reasonable to consider and honor?
I think each one is taken individually. I mean, I think that to the extent there are circumstances that warrant further extensions, I don't think there's anything preventing you from granting those extensions. If it's simply that an applicant just hasn't gotten around to something, that's a different issue. But if they are having issues based on external factors that are beyond their control or timing that they don't control, I don't think there's any problem granting multiple extensions.
Would it be appropriate if there were to be a granting of the time extension to request a check-in 12 months into the 24-month, just to report on how things are going, and if the original 24-month timeline is still achievable?
You can certainly extend for 12 months and ask them to come back and seek an additional extension if warranted. You don't have to, you don't ever have to give somebody everything they ask for.
Yes.
You know, it's like kids, you know, I want the whole bag of candy, no, you can have a piece. So you could certainly authorize a 12-month extension with the understanding that they come back to give you an update. And if the circumstance is still there as they presented now, you certainly can extend again.
I think the other consideration for most municipalities with the limits is, did you change your law or did you change your rules or anything? Now, obviously, rezone is probably going to happen in the next few months, but this is a planned institutional district, and that's not really slated to change much. So it's not like there's going to be a big change of policy for the site.
I would also say that in light of other development projects we've looked at that are not in a planned institutional development, one of our concerns has been 6 years after the initial approval, conditions on the ground have changed, and that project might not be one we would approve. And we've been talking about, and I keep saying I was going to do this and I never did, was to draft something that maybe we look at like a 5-year window. Do something within 5 years, and then if not, maybe you just come back. It doesn't mean we won't approve it, but if conditions have changed, it might warrant us taking another look. I think this falls into a different category. However, that said, I can't believe I'm going to be the one who's going to say this, I think the 24 months is reasonable because I-81's not gonna be done in 24 months, so they're gonna be back anyway. Especially if they're using it for staging. I'm trying to remember the last time I looked at a phasing of the project, but this doesn't happen right away. Like, all the 481 stuff happens first, all the stuff they're out to contract with right now, none of the stuff in the city happens for a long time. So I think they're just gonna be back anyway. So for those reasons, I think it would be reasonable to grant what they're asking for.
I'm perfectly willing to do that, and I would still encourage we include a 12-month update for an assessment of the viability of the 24-month completion period, just so they can report in on what they know at that time. So, further discussion? Or is there a motion on R 18-46, the time extension for the re-subdivision?
Approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? That one is approved, and we have Z 2805, also a third request time extension, similar circumstances.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? That is
For the
approved.
record, you're approving the 24-month extension, but you
For the
would
one-
like a 12-month
Yes.
update.
Yep. Other business before we get to authorizations? We've never had only one. Oh, no, we took care of that tonight with holding
Yeah,
hearings
right.
open.
That's right.
But-
I'm sorry, there's a page missing.
A big page. So, is there a motion to authorize SP-22-14 plus various hearings that were held open from this evening for November 21st?
Good.
There you go.
Discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Our authorizations are set. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Second, discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We are adjourned at whatever hour this is.
Who brought the goodies? I just want to say thank you.
Jeff did.
Jeff?
Thank you, Jeff.